The crowns were in. The belt held. Now we had to teach the moon how to notice. Cade rolled a fresh plan across the Tycho Ops table. No projector, just paper and the kind of pencil that leaves decisions behind it. 2 layers, he said. A quiet lattice that feels, and a ring of ghosts that lie. Define quiet, Reka said. Nothing that blinks, Cade answered. No beacons. Stone, sigil, and soft current. If a stranger breathes near our spine, the lattice tingles. The belt hum changes half a note. That's all. Rose tapped an empty hex on the map. And the ghosts. Decoy pillars, Cade said. Shallow cores that sing like anchors when touched. If someone tries to map us by behavior again, they'll memorize the wrong kindness. Good, Reka said and uncapped a pen. We marched. The lattice went in first. Seraphina chose the sights, head tilted, listening to the way Regolith keeps old secrets. At each point I cut a circle into the crust. Nothing dramatic, just a clean ring that told the ground what we wanted from it. Rachel laid a hair-thin halo of pure light into the groove, not to bless it, but to keep it honest. Erebus lowered knuckle-sized stones etched with bone lines across their faces. The marks weren't a language, they were a posture. Hold, note, whisper, he murmured, and the stones agreed. Valeria, I thought down the blade. Small lines make big fences, she said. Pleased to be used for drawing instead of ending. Cade tuned by ear. He hates meters. He tapped each set once, waited for the belt's hum to take on a faint grit where we'd set the stone, and moved on. Cecilia followed, throwing petty gusts across the new points. The hum changed, told us something had touched, then smoothed itself. Rose flicked a nail and bent a blink of space across 3 nodes at once. The lattice felt it, then forgot. Good, Cade said each time like a superstition. We laid 32 nodes that day, spaced by Seraphina's taste and Stella's math. Stella arrived at mid-shift with a slate and a knot in her braid and announced, without preamble, "Don't use even spacing around the crowns. Use the ugly sequence." Cade squinted. Ugly? She spun the slate. A staggered rotation of offsets spiraled from each crown. If they try to measure delay between nodes, the numbers won't loop. It's mean. Mean is a feature, Cade said and penciled it in. Rachel took 2 redeemers and walked the first 6 nodes, marking quiet approach lanes with lantern glyphs only redeemer eyes would see. In quiet, we move single file, she said. In noise, we move in pairs. If you hear a song you didn't start, count to 4 and step back. The redeemers nodded like people who've done the worst nights and prefer boring. Seraphina planted frost flags at the edges of shallow hollows. The flags didn't flutter. There's no air for that. But their etched lines silvered when drift rolled through. A soft, visual hiss only she seemed to enjoy. Cecilia, bored, tried to bully a pocket of dust into behaving badly. The lattice noticed and tensed, then relaxed when Rose smoothed space with 2 fingers. By afternoon, the belt song had a textured undertone you only noticed if you were looking for it. Which we were. Ghost work started at dusk. Rose picked the lie. 3 false pillars tucked into the mare, one up on the ridgeline where a curious thing might come to lean. We sank shallow cores, set dead stones, and taught them to sing only when pushed. Reka stood back, arms folded, thinking, then drew a single rune in the air over each ghost. The character had the shape of a question mark without the dot. What does that do? Cecilia asked. Makes curiosity expensive, Reka said. Cade scribbled a naming rule on the map border. No noble names, no jokes, no favorites. If you love a thing, you'll hesitate to abandon it, he said. These have to be disposable. Rachel handled the part none of us liked to name. She walked the rim with 2 redeemers, lanterns dim, and set caches near the lattice nodes. Vials, bandages, a single coin of pure light in each box. She marked them with a tag redeemer eyes recognized and others didn't. We stumble, she said, half to herself. We recover. Elias hoisted courtesy down the line to the capitals. Phase, lattice installed. Phase ghosts underway. North answered with 3 characters that meant air says thank you. South sent a tidy request to test a Redeemer cache under supervision. West replied with a skull sticker. East's elder asked if Serafina would lecture on ice at some ridiculous hour. Central asked us not to knock their antique satellite when we ran drills. Send them a path to avoid, I told Elias. We'll leave them the clean lane. We ran quiet drill 1 at local night. No spells that cut. No shots. Just a choreographed lie. Cecilia pushed a small, sulking gust over a node. The node shivered. The belt's hum acquired grit. The nearest ghost pillar hummed back in the wrong key like a drunk friend answering for you at a roll call. Cade raised a finger. Note, not chime, he said. The lattice obeyed on the second pass. Reka wrote enough in the air, and the ghosts learned not to answer each other unless touched twice in a row. Rose lay a gauze of paradox across 2 nodes so thin you had to squint to call it there. The lattice found it, raised a whisper, then let it go. Again, Kate said. Quiet drill 2 was blind corner work. Serafina set a low wall of ice that made a pocket of perfect shadow. Rose bent the path of that shadow so it looked longer than it was. Cecilia slid warmth along the edge so sensors would itch. The lattice ticked once, nudged the belt's hum, and then leveled. Cade nodded. Good. We don't jump at coats on chairs. Quiet drill 3 tested false positives. I dragged Valeria lightly across a node. No cut, just pressure, the way a careless boot might skim, and Rachel dusted a pure light hush over it a heartbeat later. The lattice recorded the touch, then forgot it, like a polite host pretending the spill didn't happen. Again, Cade said, but his shoulders had already dropped a fraction. Valeria hummed, small and content. This is good work, she said. No screaming. Tomorrow we'll scream, I said. Then be greedy with tonight, she answered. We finished on the rim above Tycho. The yard lights pooled below, honest and busy. Stella leaned against my leg and pointed Earth out to me like I'd forgotten where home hung. It looks closer, she said. It is, I told her. We tied a few more ropes. Knots good? She asked, suspicious. The ugly sequence is cruel, I said. She grinned like a thief who'd got away with it. Elias brought a short addendum from the capitals while we packed. North offered 2 sky controllers for launch windows. East promised a crate of cryochalk for Serafina. South requested a Redeemer lane map to mirror on their ward boards. West attached a picture of a grill and the words Moon Barbecue when. Central sent a footnote about moving that antique satellite next week if we left them a lane at 1712. Approve North for crowded days, I said. Tell East the chalk is welcome. South gets the lane map with the caches blurred. West can barbecue when we invent atmosphere. Central gets their window if they send me the exact path. Copy, Elias said, already sending. We sent 1 more message to the 5 capitals. Lattice live. Decoy set. Training quiet. Replies chimed back. The sound felt like a world practicing breathing without flinching. We slept on rotating cots, some of us, and pretended not to hear the belt when it changed its mind 3 times in the night. It wasn't trouble. It was learning. That's allowed. Teeth day. Cade didn't call them that. He called them SBP units, short barrel projectors, but everyone up here had started saying teeth and the map didn't argue. 8 to start, he said. 2 in Imbrium, 2 in Procelarum, 2 in Crisium, 2 tucked near the highlands. Low profile. Cold when idle. No glow. If they ever sing, they sing for a second and then become rocks again. Trigger? Rose asked. Only the lattice, Cade said. Human hands don't wake them. Friendly ghosts don't wake them. Grit on the belt in the wrong shape wakes them. Reka cracked her neck. And then they draw a line, Cade said. We set the first pit at the edge of Imbrium. I cut the ring. Rachel laid a thin pure light wash that would make residue slip. Erebus lowered the tooth and closed its ribbed shroud. It looked like a forgotten stone with an uninteresting shadow. Good. Cecilia coughed and threw a handful of small lies into the air. Heat that changed its mind. A breeze with stage fright. A shimmer that would embarrass a camera. The tooth slept. Love a lazy boy, she said. Don't name them, Reka said, not looking up. Serafina walked 40 paces and built a drift wall out of ice so modest you'd forget it when you turned away. If we have to fire near the cap, she said, we won't make a white storm. Cade grunted appreciation. I've seen him say less to kings. We set the next 3 in Procelarum and along the ridge toward the highlands. Rose folded a paper-thin peel of space around the second and taught it to close if a stranger look tried to bend the hinge. Erebus added a bone key under the third sleep long, wake clean. Rachel touched each halo and watched for the way Lysandra's taste sometimes tries to cling. Each time, the taste slid off, and her shoulders lost a little height. By the 4th placement, the routine felt like a lull in a song you love. That's when the lattice told us someone else liked our chorus. It wasn't an alarm, just a grit under the hum that hadn't been there a breath ago. The nearest ghost pillar pretended to care and then didn't. The lattice pointed. 3 nodes ruffled in sequence near Chrysium like someone ran a dry finger along a rail. Talk to me, Cade said, very quiet. Slip taste, Rose murmured. Not wind, not heat. A thread trying to be a maybe. Projection, Rachel asked, already moving. No, I said, feeling the wrong the way you feel a hair caught on skin. A needle. Clever. Small. Vectors. Reka snapped. 17 degrees off the rim, low, Serafina said. She'd already turned her head toward a patch of shadow that didn't deserve her attention but had it anyway. Teeth, Cade asked. Hold, I said. I want to see it. We ghosted down the slope as a unit. Cecilia's air wrapped around our suits so dust didn't complain. Rose erasing the echo our boots would have left in a nosy space. Reka's script lying to angles so a passerby would think we were part of the ground. Rachel's lantern stayed dark at her hip, but her hands were ready and warm. Erebus peeled a thin page of his necropolis over the trench ahead. The page didn't block. It listened, old and patient. We saw it at the same moment. A filament like spider silk, thinnest wrong, drifting along the lattice as if it had been invited to dinner. Not tech. Not magic. Something demons call clever with a straight face. Cecilia's fingers twitched. Let me. Wait, I said. The filament brushed a ghost pillar. The ghost jumped with delight, hummed the wrong key, and then, per the lesson, stopped. The filament ticked, displeased. It reached toward a real node. Now, Cade said through his teeth. 1 tooth, I ordered. No chorus. Reka flicked 2 characters in the air. Wake and alone. 30 meters left. A low rock unfolded 1 petal and drew a line the length of a breath. The filament met the line and decided it would rather be regret. Tried to run. Rose shifted the ground under it. Not a trap, a nudge, so its plan forgot where its feet lived. Cecilia hissed and bled a sliver of chaos into the air. The moon's skin said friction twice, and the filament stumbled on the second. Rachel, I said. Her pure light didn't blast. It dusted. The residue that wanted to ride our hum found no purchase and fell off like frost in noon. Erebus snapped a glyph. A bone ampoule appeared where the filament had wanted to be. Closed with a polite click. Caught, he said. Cade's shoulders dropped. Teeth stayed cool after the first taste, he reported, scanning the little shrouds. They didn't get excited. Good boys, Cecilia said, satisfied. Reka didn't scold her this time. Is that all? Serafina asked, still watching the shadow like it might feel guilty and confess. For now, Rose said. This had the flavor of a hand-me-down trick. Not a mind. Lysandra's mind doesn't waste itself on needles, Rachel said. No, I agreed. But her engineers will keep trying. Let them, Valeria murmured. I like batting flies. We reset, kept our breathing ordinary, and finished the last 4 placements with the calm that comes from an answered question. The teeth slept under their shrouds. The lattice hummed with its new texture. The ghost pillars learned another lie. We ran a live drill before local dawn. Not fireworks. Not a show. A conjured storm of nothing that would matter. Cecilia seeded a pocket of dust with wrong intent. Serafina cooled it into pellets that wanted to be pebbles. Rose tilted a thumb of space so the fake fall looked real. The lattice felt, The crown passed the whisper. A single tooth at each quarter woke, drew a line and slept again. No stray glare. No self-congratulation. Cade's grin was a private thing he didn't let touch his face. Elias's voice came across the band from Tycho. Courtesy loop. North offers 2 sky controllers if you want redundancy on launch days. West says nice bite. East asks when they can send array scholars to look with their hands tied. South requests 20 Redeemer lanterns at cost. Central has a dead satellite you can punt for fun if you're bored. Tell North we'll take their people if the sky gets crowded, I said. Tell West we prefer nice nap. Tell East yes, pens capped, stand behind the line. Tell South Rachel will invoice. Tell Central we'll move the corpse before it falls on someone's porch. Copy, Elias said, happy because the answers were simple for once. We warped back to Tycho. The map wore 4 new words in Cade's rough hand. Teeth. Quiet. Green. People pretended not to clap. Stella pretended not to bow. I walked the yard rim alone and put my palm on the nearest pillar. It thrummed under my skin. Belt, crowns, lattice, ghosts, teeth. One system, not perfect, just stubborn. Earth hung impossibly blue over the black. For a breath, I let it be only that. A blue coin and a stone that had learned to pay attention. Valeria stretched like a cat inside the sheath. We have built a jaw, she said. Not to bite first, I said. To stop bleeding, she agreed. A thin shiver of sense brushed the edge of thought. Not danger. Not yet. Something far off paying the kind of attention that writes your name down to spell it later. Work tomorrow, I said to the pillar, to the belt, to the sky. The moon didn't answer. It didn't have to. Cade spread a new map. No projector. Paper taped to Tycho's steel table. Teeth are live. Now we see if the jaw works, he said. 2 drills. Then we shut up and listen. We took positions around Mare Imbrium. The lattice nodes hummed underfoot, the ghost pillars dozing in their false skins. The first drill was ours. A fake stress to prove the handoff. Chaos seed, I said. Cecilia flicked her fingers. Heat and cold argued across a pocket of dust. The air didn't move, but the numbers did. Serafina cooled the edge into tiny pellets so nothing went airborne. Rose bent a thumb of space over the patch, just enough to make it look real to anything that wanted to measure. The lattice felt the fall. A single tooth woke, drew a clean, invisible line and went back to sleep. Cade listened with his jaw, not his ears. Note then settle. Good. Again softer, I said. We ran it twice more, then killed it. Clean response. No flash, no aftertaste. That's when the belt's hum picked up grit that wasn't ours. Foreign, Rose said. No drama, just fact. Vector, Reka asked. Chrysium rim low and flat, Serafina answered, already turning. Don't light the whole board, Cade said. We catch, we don't scare. We ghosted in. Cecilia wrapped our suits so dust wouldn't speak. Rose erased boot echo. Reka drew 2 short lines in the air that made angles lie on our behalf. Rachel's lantern stayed latched. Her hands were warm and ready. We saw the intruder a breath later. 3 filaments, not 1. So thin they were a suggestion, sliding along our lattice like they belonged at the party. Split, I said. 1 each. Erebus peeled a page of black bone between the filaments and us. It didn't block them. It listened to them. The first filament reached for a ghost pillar. The pillar hummed wrong, then stopped, lesson remembered. The filament tasted, found nothing to eat and moved on. The second angled for a real node. Reka, I said. She snapped her fingers. A tooth 30 meters out woke, drew a single line like a held breath, and slept. The filament met the line and tried to pretend it hadn't. It rewrote its path mid-move. Rose, I said. She pinched space like a hinge and made the rewrite cost time. A heartbeat only, but enough. Rachel, I said. Her pure light fell like dust. No glare, no blast. The filament's residue lost grip and fell off the hum. Erebus's bone ampoule popped into being at the right place and closed with a neat click. 2, he said. The third filament learned from the others. It skittered for open regolith, trying to ride the ground around our frame. Cecilia, I said. She bled a filament of chaos into the dust itself. Friction doubled where the intruder tried to skate. It stumbled. Serafina flicked her wrist and iced a hair-thin ridge in front of it. No spray, no plume, just a line that might as well have been a wall. Erebus closed the third ampoule. Cade checked the teeth on the scope. All cooled on first cycle. No chatter. Good boys, Cecilia said. Reka didn't correct her. We stayed still for 2 long minutes. No follow-ups. No second act. Not Lysandra's hand, Rose said. Borrowed trick. Cheap. Cheaper next time, Cade muttered. They'll keep shaving. Let them, Valeria whispered from my hip. It gives us something to cut that isn't bone. We reset and finished the placements scheduled for Procelarum and the Highlands. Same rhythm. I cut tidy rings. Rachel laid thin halos that made residue slip. Erebus seated teeth and locked their ribbed shrouds. Serafina added a quiet drift wall if the site needed it. Rose folded a paper-thin peel of space when a camera angle offended her. Reka put 2 characters in the air and made curiosity expensive. At Tycho, Elias kept a quiet loop open with the 5 capitals. He held up a hand mid-pass. North asks if your teeth will false trigger on carrier turbulence, he said. Only if their pilots fly like drunks, Cade answered. Elias smiled and typed the polite version. On the last install, the lattice hummed a new grit. For filaments this time, Serafina said, annoyed. Hold them at the ghost ring, I said. Make them memorize the wrong kindness. We did. The ghosts sang only when touched and only once. The intruders learned nothing useful and left a bad mood behind. Erebus lined the 3 ampoules on his palm. Same maker as yesterday's bead. Different recipe. Figure out what it wanted to teach, I said. Of course, he said. And the ampoules vanished into a pocket that didn't exist. Cade rolled up the paper map, pencil tucked behind one ear. Teeth are quiet. Jaw is set. Next phase. Visitors, I said. We let allies see the system and try to trick it for us. He grunted. Tie down anything that might impress a tourist. Pens capped, Rose deadpanned. Rachel pinged Elias. Open courtesy, she said. Invite window to all 5. 1 team per continent. Observation and clean drills only. Elias answered a second later from Tycho. North sending 2 sky controllers. East sending 3 array scholars and 1 Mount Hua elder. West Jean. South. A Redeemer cadre with Captain VYR. Central. A Slatemark logistics unit and a judge who wants to watch you break nothing. Good spread, Cade said. Put them on this rim, I said, tapping the map. We run a real drill. They try to beat the lattice. We learn how we look from the outside. And if something bigger shows up while we're showing off? Reka asked. Then the visitors see why we built it, I said. And they help. She nodded once. Simple is best. We started prepping the rim. VYR's guard painted a thin line where observers would stand and a thicker one where they would not. Central's logistics lead moved a pallet train out of a sight line without being asked. Serafina reset 3 ice flags in the shade and wrote fragile on the ground in a way only she could read. Stella hustled in, braid half loose. Slate up. If they try synchronized pokes, alternate node groups, she said, drawing a quick pattern. Cade looked, grunted, and penciled it in. Ugly Sequence Junior, he said. She beamed. I walked the arc once, hand on a pillar, then on a ghost skin. The belt hummed the same note as before, but my bones felt the edge we'd earned. Not victory. Awareness. Valeria stretched a little inside the sheath. Your allies will like this, she said. They'll try to break it, I said. That's how they say they care, she answered, amused. On to the next, Cade said. We went. North arrived first. 2 windward sky controllers stepped off their shuttle with clipped salutes and steady eyes. Not swordsmen, air traffic artists who keep a dozen lanes in their head and never let 2 ships share the same sky. They shook Cade's hand like equals, which bought them goodwill. Keep our launch windows clean if we whistle, he said. We already have them penciled, the taller one answered. We'll erase if you don't need us. East followed. 3 array scholars from Mount Hua, robes simple, eyes bright, and Elder Bai, who Serafina bowed to without words. He bowed back. We will not touch, he told Cade. We will only look. Looking is the point, Cade said. West landed with Jean and 2 Ashbluff techs who smelled like dust and old war. Jin's glance took in the crowns, the belt, the ghost skins, and came back to me. Pretty, he said. I brought boring people to break your pretty. Break what you can, I said. South sent Captain VYR with a Redeemer cadre. They parked their lanterns like small suns and stood where Rachel pointed. We watch lane behavior, VYR said. Rachel nodded, and that was that. Central arrived last. A Slatemark logistics unit led by a woman who could load an army with a whisper, plus a judge with a neat collar and a polite frown. Rose met the judge halfway and handed over a 1-page writ. Observer rights, line rules, no interference clauses. He read it, signed it, and stood exactly where she told him to. Smart. We walked the rim together. No speeches. I pointed at pillars and said what they did in 1 sentence. Cade explained the lattice in 2. Serafina showed an ice drift wall so small you'd miss it if you blinked. Reika drew a single character in the air for the group enough and let it fade. Cecilia made heat wobble for 1 second and then stop. Rose folded a thumb of space and unfolded it without anyone feeling sick. Rachel ignored the judge's frown and built Redeemer caches along the observation line anyway. Okay, I said. You've looked. Now you try to fool it. I gave them a clean lane and a timer. North went first. The sky controllers pushed a silent disturbance across the belt. Tiny shifts across a long arc, timed like a drumline. The lattice felt it, smoothed, and didn't call a tooth. Cade nodded once. Good control, he admitted. Then he flicked a setting none of them saw, and the lattice revised its sensitivity by a fraction without getting twitchy. East tried next. The scholars wrote a classical Mount Hua array in the air over 3 nodes, sending a humble hello that most systems would misclassify as weather. Serafina smiled before the lattice tagged it. Our ice said no, she told them. They smiled back, delighted to lose to ice. West's techs made a mess on purpose. They seeded the ground with sympathetic crumbs, set a decoy chatter at the edge of a ghost pillar's skirt, and waited for our system to argue with itself. Didn't. Rose had taught the ghosts to ignore each other unless touched twice in sequence. The techs groaned and clapped anyway. South's Redeemers walked a slow loop with their lanterns latched. Rachel asked them to give no light and all patience. The lattice didn't twitch. VYR smiled, tiny. Your line knows friend from foreign without being trained to faces, she said. Good. Central's logistics lead didn't touch arrays. She walked supply lines, shook her head at 2, rerouted 1 pallet train with 3 gestures, and told Cade where we would trip a stretcher if someone panicked. He fixed it in 5 minutes and thanked her like she'd saved his life. The judge observed and didn't speak. We reset. Round 2, I said. Harder. Jean took this one. He borrowed 2 Redeemer lanterns and a scholar's chalk and built a false rescue under a false collapse, timing each beat to a heartbeat and a lie. It looked real. Sounded real. It fooled 2 young guards at the line. The lattice tagged the pattern in under 2 seconds. 1 tooth woke, drew a line the length of a blink, and slept. Reika's character enough flashed once in air above Jin's trick and vanished. Cecilia applauded because of course she did. Jean laughed. Okay, you built this to make me work. That's the job, I said. We were walking back when the belt's hum got rough. Not grit. Pressure. A wide sweep, slow, long, and hungry, coming over the far side. No filaments this time. A dish. Big. Every head turned toward the same dark edge. Scan, North said at once. Of course, Rose said. Not ours. How hard? VYR asked. Hard enough to tug at the ghosts if we let it, Cade said, already drawing lines on the paper map. Teeth, Reika said. Not yet, I said. If it's a dish, Its first pass is for baseline. Rachel moved before I told her to. Lanterns here, 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 she said. And her redeemers set 3 points like stitches along a wound that hadn't opened yet. Erebus' voice came from nowhere and everywhere. I can make a thin roof, he said. Polite. Not war. Do it, I said. Only where the sweep will try to read. He draped a membrane of bone over a long arc of the mare. It didn't block signal. It muddied intention. The scan washed over it and came away with a sketch that looked like a child's drawing of a map. The pressure built for one more breath. Now they nudge, Rose said. The scan shifted into a secondary mode. The ghosts hummed once, per lesson, then shut up. The lattice adjusted its note without a jump. Cade's pencil moved across the map like he was playing a quiet instrument. Teeth on corners, Lo, he said. Wake 2, I ordered. 2 stones unfolded 1 petal. 2 lines drew. Not beams. Edits. The scan's edge lost definition and then lost interest. Pulled back. We held position for count of 30. No return pass. Not a mind, Seraphina said. A machine. Send the courtesy, I told Elias. Farside dish read. No impact. Our reply was polite. North says they saw it too, Elias replied. They'll throw chaff in high-orbit lanes if it repeats. West says we owe you a beer. East asks for the trace. South says their Ward C buzzed in sympathy for a second and then smoothed. Central asks if their dead satellite is still safe. It is, Cade said without looking up. The judge cleared his throat. On behalf of Central, consider this a formal commendation for restraint. Rose gave him a look that said don't make it a speech. He wisely stopped. I looked at the visitors. Thank you for trying to break us. Next time we'll do it better, Jean said. I hope so, I answered. It keeps us honest. We didn't end with clapping or a debrief monologue. We split into small knots. North set up a shadow desk near Cade to sync launch windows. East walked with Seraphina to the ice flags and started asking smart questions. West's techs traded quiet notes with Erebus about bone etching and dampening fields. South's redeemers compared cache contents with Rachel and swapped tricks for keeping hands steady when people scream. Central's logistics lead moved a pallet train again without asking anyone, because she was right. I stepped to the rim with Reka and watched Earth hang over Tycho. The belt hummed. The ghost slept. The teeth were quiet. Reka didn't look at me. You're thinking about the next thing, she said. Always, I said. Good, she said. We'll be ready. The hum under our boots shifted a hair. Not danger. Just the system learning that many eyes had looked at it and liked what they saw. Next drill, Cade called from behind us. 3 minutes. We turned and jogged back to the line. Cade taped a fresh paper map to Tycho's steel table. No hollow. Pencil behind his ear. Teeth are live. Time to see if the jaw works, he said. We run drills. Then we shut up and listen. Our guests filed in along the marked rim, 1 team per continent, exactly as promised. From the north, 2 sky controllers in light flight harness, the windward crest stitched small. Lieutenant Scotty introduced herself with a nod. Her partner, Controller Nari Creighton, said nothing, eyes already tracing currents that weren't there. They didn't need air to work. They shaped mana flow like pilots shaping flight paths. From the east, 3 array scholars in gray robes and a Mount Hua elder in plain white travel cloth, hair pinned with a bone pick. Elder Mei Shui, Seraphina whispered, straightening unconsciously. Elder Mei's gaze flicked over sword, ice flags, my stance. Approval withheld, not denied. From the west, Jean Ashbluff, hands in pockets, smile unhelpful. A thin ribbon of dark mana trailed his heel and then didn't. From the south, Captain Celine Vyr with a Redeemer cadre, lanterns hooded, kits neat, boots quiet. From central, a Slatemark logistics unit led by Prefect Lawrence and a magistrate in travel black. Seal ring turned inward. Elian Varus, he said, voice like a ledger. Rules, Reka said, crisp. Observers behind the white line. Testers at my word. No one touches a pillar without Cade's nod. Rachel calls any halt. Cade pointed with his pencil. We'll start simple. Lattice field check. If you can trick it, do. If you can't, write down why. Drill 1 north. Chaos seed, I said. Cecilia flicked her fingers. Heat and cold argued across a pocket of dust. Serafina cooled the edge into pellets so nothing would rise. Rose bent a thumb of space over the patch. Looked like debris fall to any nosy measurement. The lattice felt the fall. A single tooth woke, drew a clean line, slept. Scotty watched, then raised a palm. Airless or not, she knew flow. She rolled a thin pressure ripple, a mana draft, across 2 nodes out of phase, then inverted it before it reached a ghost. The lattice hummed, hesitated. Note, not chime, Cade murmured, adjusting a stone with a tap. The hum settled. Smart, Nari said. Your ghosts want to gossip. Expensive to keep secrets, Reka said, sketching a short sigil in the air. The nearest ghost learned to answer once, never twice. Drill 2 east. Array Scholar 1 placed a palm to regolith and whispered a phase pattern, trying to cancel the lattice's feel with a lace of near-identical hum. Elder May didn't move, but her presence pressed the dust flat. The lattice twitched, tempted, then shook it off. Paradox veil, I said. Rose layered a gauze thin enough to see through. Scholar 2 smiled like he'd found an edge and pushed. Phase against paradox. The ghost pillar hummed wrong, then stopped. Scholar 3 frowned, recalibrated, added a harmonic. The teeth stayed asleep. Why? Scholar 2 asked, honestly curious. Ugly sequence. Stella chirped from behind Rachel's leg. Slate up. Offsets don't loop. Your cancellation never lands square. Elder May's eyes warmed a fraction. Who taught you that? Myself, Stella said. Serafina's mouth almost smiled. Drill 3 west. Jin's dark ribbon slid off the rim and tried to be a shadow of a shadow. A behavior echo. The lattice felt it late by design, then made the ghost ring sing the wrong kindness. Jean listened, adapted, split the ribbon into 7 threads, changed frequency mid-flow. Teeth, Reka asked. Hold, I said. Learn his rhythm. Jin's threads braided, unbraided. Now, Cade said. A single tooth woke for a heartbeat, drew a line, slept. Jin's lead thread tripped. Erebus's ampoule appeared at the right place and clicked shut on the echo. Jean raised both hands, grinning. Rude. Alive, Cade replied. We like rude when it works. Drill 4 south. VYR's cadre unhooded 2 lanterns halfway. Rachel set the halo brightness to hospital quiet and walked the line. We're checking for taste transfer, she said. If Lysantra's residue likes the lattice, it might stick when we purge. They pushed Sanctity across 3 nodes, then pulled back. No cling, Rachel reported. Lanterns can cache here without making the belt too holy to feel dirt. Blessed be boring, VYR said, satisfied. Drill 5 central. Prefect Lawrence ran pallet trains in staggered loads across a marked lane. Not tech. Mana-assisted mass. Fast. The lattice felt weight without mistaking it for harm. A ghost pillar pretended to care, then didn't. Teeth stayed cold. Magistrate Varus watched a long minute. Your system discriminates well, he said. Finds intent. Finds behavior, Rose corrected. Intent smells later. Comforting, he said, which might have been a joke. We paused for breath and pencil edits. Cade chalked 2 tiny changes to the ghost's reply window. Reka wrote enough above 1 node until it learned the word. Rose adjusted a paradox seam everyone else pretended not to see but felt. Combine test, Elder May said suddenly. Her voice was light snow. All of us at once. Many small lies. Cade glanced at me. I nodded. On my count. North ripples. East lace. West echo. South lantern wash low. Central mass run. Cecilia, a soft shimmer over the set. Serafina, drift walls on the flanks. Rose, veil thin. Reka, cap curiosity. Rachel, hand on the cord. 3, Cade counted. 2, 1. The moon moved. The lattice felt a field of nothing that wanted to be something. Ghosts answered once, never twice. For teeth woken across, drew for short lines, slept. The hum rose, grit smoothed, settled. Elder May's chin dipped. Acceptable. Nari made a small, honest face like respect. Jean clapped twice because he is Jean. VYR signed a redeemer tag on a cash box. Lawrence marked a lane on his tablet, already calculating how to keep freight boring. Varus turned his ring outward again. We kept the line open for one more hour of play. Visitors tried, failed, adjusted. The system learned, tightened. By the end, Cade wrote 4 words on his map in blunt pencil. Jaw handoff. Works. Good, Reka said. Now we listen. Cade's pencil lifted. We shut up and listen. We did. No speeches. No end-of-day ritual. Just a blue earth above, a belt humming underfoot, and allies content to stand and hear a system breathe. We held the rim for a quiet watch. The visitors stayed, behind the white line by choice now, no one eager to be the one who ruined a clean record. The lattice's new undertone settled into something you felt in your teeth if you paid attention. We paid attention. The first grit came stub-fine. Seraphina's head turned. There. Direction, Cade asked. Chrysium again, she said, annoyed at the repeat offender. Low. Flat. Same maker, Rose asked the air already moving. Probably, Erebus said from a pocket that wasn't there. They're proud of this trick. We ghosted. Cecilia wrapped us in a hush that fooled dust. Rose erased foot echo. Reka drew 2 small lies across angles. Rachel's hands warmed. Voyar's guard shifted 30 meters without being told. We expected filaments. We got a braid. 7 hair-thin threads twisted into a rope, each thread slightly out of phase with the next. It skated along our feel net as if it had dipped its toes in yesterday's hum and brought a recording. Not a bead, Cade said. A leech. It wants the lattice to hum back, Rose said. Then it'll clap in time and learn our song. Teeth, Reka asked, already measuring. Not yet, I said. Let it commit. The braid brushed a ghost pillar. The pillar hummed wrong, stopped. The braid waited, then added a tiny echo of the ghost to itself. Unpleasantly smart. North, I said without looking. Scotty and Nari didn't need more. They rolled a counter-ripple through mana like a crosswind that never existed, nudging the braid half a degree off a real node. Corrected. Learning. It split into 2 braids and tried 2 nodes at once, banking on lag. Ugly sequence defeats loop, Stella whispered like a reminder to herself. West, I said. Jin's dark ribbon slid wide and laid a false trail, an edible hum with no teeth behind it. 1 braid bit, slowed. The other aimed straight for a clean node. Reka, I said. Wake alone, she snapped. A tooth unfolded a petal and drew a line exactly as long as a breath. The braid split again, 1 thread slithering under our cut like water through gravel. Rose, I said. She pinched space and flipped the underthread onto the overthread. The braid tripped over itself. Rachel, I said. Pure light dusted the contact. The stolen hum didn't stick. South, I said. VYR's cadre opened a lantern a hand-width. Sanctity, thin as silk, stroked the braid and made it forget it had hands. Central, I said. Lawrence ran a pallet train through a decoy lane, big enough mass to tempt a thief. The braid bit on instinct, half its threads turning toward the moving target. Teeth stayed sleeping. Now, Cade said flat. For teeth woken across, drew 4 lines. Slept. Not a net. Just scissor cuts at the right joints. Erebus's bone ampoules clicked shut one after another. 3. Then a 4th that held only regret and the ghost of a stolen hum. Maker improved, he said, approving and bored at once. Still proud. Still careless. Any taste? Rachel asked, jaw tight. He shook his skull. A faint want. Not Lysandra's hand. A junior's hunger. Good, I said. Let them stay junior. Elder May spoke for the first time since the count. Again. But we will be the braid. She and Seraphina stepped forward together. Plum Blossom sword and Elder's quiet blade. They drew steel and ice at once, two thin arcs that wrote pressure where no air lived. Jean set a shadow ribbon between them. Scotty and Nari rolled a smooth countercurrent under the weave. The Redeemers shifted one lantern half an inch. Rose laid a paradox seam you could barely swear existed. Reika drew enough above the test like a lid you keep loose. We ran it clean. The lattice felt, the ghosts lied once, the teeth trimmed, the hum settled. No flash, no heroics. Magistrate Varus actually smiled. It looked like a crack in granite. Cade made a second pencil note. Braid cut. Clean. We reset. The rim eased. Earth edged higher. Tycho yard lights ticked on below, work never stopping. Then the second grit came, deep, not stubby. Not a braid. A mirror. The hum reflected back at us from nowhere, matched down to a flaw we had joked about hours ago. Rose froze. That's ours, she said softly. From the training. Someone recorded the exact wobble and is playing it at us. Vector? Cade asked. Above, Seraphina said, looking at nothing. High. Off the mare. Erebus peeled a pocket across the sky like ink over glass. The mirror noise smeared against it and showed its edge. A thin disk, color of old smoke, invisible until it wasn't. Not a drone, Cade said. A coin. Flip it, Valeria purred. Reika, I said. She wrote 2 characters in the empty dark. One meant enough. One meant down. The coin tried to learn those words and failed. It spun faster, copying our hum harder, feeding it back to make our lattice chase itself. Teeth, Cade asked. 2, I said. Opposite arcs. Half draw. 2 teeth woke on arcs 100 meters apart and drew lines that never met, just crossed where the coin had to pass if it wanted to keep faking. The coin tried to widen its spin. North, I said. Nari snapped an invisible crosswind, mana drag. The spin lost elegance. West, I said. Jean threw a shiver of dark through the coin's center. It faltered, forgot its timing for a blink. East, I said. Rose turned her paradox seam inside out for the span of a breath. The coin's echo sampled the wrong thing and corrupted itself. South, I said. Rachel's pure light fell like very gentle rain. Whatever residue wanted to cling found no purchase. Erebus catcher. Click. The hum under our feet smoothed like someone finished a sentence. Cade let out a breath and didn't pretend it was nothing. He wrote 3 more words under his last note. Mirror cut. Okay. Elder May slid her sword home. Your moon is learning. Fast. Nari added, almost cheerful. VYR hooded her lantern and nodded at the cash tags we'd pre-marked. We'll seed 10 more, she said to Rachel. Same recipe. Invoice later, Rachel said, already mentally counting vials. Prefect Lawrence clapped a hand to a pallet crate. Your lanes will hold a surge, he said. We'll keep freight boring. Varus turned his seal ring outward again. Consider me satisfied. Jean nudged my shoulder with a grin. When you're done making a jaw, come let us kick it, he said. West will bring a new trick. We'll build a better lie, Rose said, polite and deadly. Cade rolled up the paper with care, pencil behind his ear like always. Teeth are quiet. Jaw works. We listen again. We didn't close with ceremony. We split jobs. VYR's team to caches, north to Skylanes, east to a corner to argue about phase math with Rose, west to find a shadow that hadn't been claimed yet, central to move a pallet train out of a stupid place. I walked the rim once more with Stella at my side. She pointed at the notes on Cade's map. Ugly sequence held, she said, satisfied. It did, I said. Valeria hummed, small and pleased. Good cuts, she said. No screaming. Keep it that way, I told her. Earth hung above, blue and impossible. The belt hummed underfoot, steady, aware. We had allies on the rim and a system that answered when pressed without shouting about it. We left the line marked and the lanes clear. Erebus set the 3 bone ampoules on Cade's steel table and opened a pocket that smelled like cold stone. No flames, he said. They like being seen. Distill, Cade said, pencil ready. No projector, paper, and a blunt lead. He listens with his jaw, not his ears. Erebus cracked the first ampoule. Not liquid, dust that refused to fall. He coaxed it through a narrow bone funnel into a shallow dish. Lines rose in the dust like breath across frost, then settled into a pattern. Not a map, a behavior. Rose leaned in. Echo seeding, she said. It teaches the belt to remember the touch and want it again. Like a song you can't stop humming, Rachel murmured, unhappy. Erebus opened the second. Same dust, different curve. It played with timing, rewarded the lattice when it answered quickly, punished it when it didn't. Training, Cade said, disgusted. They're housebreaking our hum. Trying, I said. The third dust drew a coil that looped back into itself. Stella climbed onto a chair she wasn't supposed to stand on and squinted. If we give it the same note twice, it learns it, she said. So stop giving it the same note twice. Cade looked at her. You have a schedule? She drew on the paper with a blunt marker, no apology. Ugly sequence is our spacing. Layer a jitter on top, tiny delay wobble. Safe tolerances. Never repeats. She tapped 3 points. Add hum decay. A jagged line sloped down. After any touch, the belt slides home. But home is never identical. Cade wrote HUM, decay in big letters and circled it twice. We can do that. Redeemer wash? Rachel asked without waiting. Dust the caches with a thin pure light comb so residue can't set hooks. Yes, I said. Every cache. Every node the Redeemer's touch. Erebus's fingers twitched. Taste-wise, these are not Lysandra's hands, he said. Skilled juniors. Proud. Sloppy in the pride. Good, Rose said. Pride we can use. Lyra had been quiet at the back of the room with Tiamat, listening. You're correct about the research guild, she said. The demon lord does not waste her attention on needles. Her labs do. She nodded once at Stella. Your wobble will make them angry. Good, Stella said, grinning. Elias patched courtesy to the 5 capitals as we wrote countermeasures. Non-human echo seeding detected, hum decay and jitter layered, Redeemer wash standard, no change to belt integrity. Replies came slick and fast. South's tidy thanks. North's received, will mirror for sky lanes. West skull emoji and nice petty. East with a polite request to send an array pair to observe the wobble. Central asking if the jitter would upset any old tin we hadn't deorbited yet. Send Central a clean window, I told Elias. We'll leave them a lane to push their antiques through. We were still answering when the lattice underfoot changed flavor. Not alarm, not panic, just grit. A single node on the far side crown noticed a breath that didn't belong, then stilled. Seraphina looked up like someone had called her name. Far side, she said. Piri's shadow. 1 heartbeat, wrong key. Cade's pencil stopped. Not a filament? No, Seraphina said. Too round. Erebus's head tilted. A pre-bloom, he said. A microgate feeling for its edge. We go, I said. No one packed. There wasn't anything to pack. Reka's script bent angles. Cecilia wrapped our suits so dust forgot us. Rose thinned space where footsteps usually tell tales. Rachel clipped a second lantern to her belt. Voyar set her guard 30 meters off without needing to be told. Cade stayed at Tycho to listen through paper and steel. The teeth slept until and unless he tapped the table. We warped to Piri's lip and stepped into shadow that didn't care about day. The hum here is bone deep and honest. The wrong thing felt like a pebble in a shoe. We found it where Seraphina pointed. A pearl the size of a coin, black like wet stone, beating slow. It wasn't open. It wanted to be. Not here, Cade said in my ear. No teeth. The ground behaves because you've been kind. Understood, I said. Let me try it my way, Luna said inside my head, bright and calm. I drew Valeria an inch, not to cut, just to breathe. Lucent harmony, I whispered. We laid it thin, me and Luna together. Tranquility pressed like cool cloth on a fever. The pearl's pulse faltered. It didn't like being made to wait, but it didn't throw a fit either. "Hold it," Rose said, already lifting 2 fingers. She folded the idea of the pearl's inside against itself. No drama, just a seam that refused to open outward. Reika sketched a character above the black. Refuse. The line didn't touch, just told the world what we wanted from it. Rachel dusted a pure light comb through the air. Anything that wanted to stick to us in the fight lost purchase. The pearl shuddered. Then it sighed in a way only gates sigh, gave up, and collapsed inward. Erebus had the jar there before it could decide to be clever. The husk clicked into a bone ampoule like a bug into amber. Something rattled inside the husk. Rose broke the ampoule seal with a lawyer's care and tipped out a clay token the size of her thumbnail. Scratches cut into it at odd angles. Even my eyes wanted to see a map where none existed. "It's not a target," she said. "It's a vector preference. Testing which doors are easy, not what's worth visiting." "Send the picture," I told Elias. "All 5 capitals. No panic. No press." The Redeemers put a small lantern cache near the scar and tagged it with a mark only their eyes respect. Serafina pressed her palm to the ground and listened. "No fractures," she said. "It hated being closed, but it didn't get angry." "Good," I said. "We've had enough drama." Cade's voice came back from Tycho even. "Humdecay holds. Jitter is invisible unless you stare. Your pearl didn't leave fingerprints." "Then we move to the next phase," I said. "We've proven the jaw. Time to hand the watch to the world." Tiamat looked at the collapsed pearl and then at me like she was measuring weight. "You pick your moments," she said. "I try to pick the right ones," I said. "Keep trying," she said, and the corner of her mouth moved. We didn't return to the table. We walked the rim together and spoke the rules out loud so the stone could hear them too. We handed the rim to people who could keep it quiet without us and stepped through the warp to Avalon. Ouroboros HQ smelled like home and hot copper. Elias met us with a slate and 3 urgent lines. I didn't read the 3rd, because something wrong rolled over my tongue like old smoke. Order of the Fallen Flame. I didn't say it. I opened gray. 2 flat pages slid apart in my head. Avalon laid itself between them, relations, not streets. Heat to promise. Footstep to intention. Down in the East Quarter, under the old catacombs, a thread of pride and blood was waking. In the city's skin, on the surface, another touch burned clean and quiet. The graveyard we tend because someone has to. I shut gray. The room came back. "Rose," I said. She was already watching me. "Where?" Evelyn's line. "East Quarter. Below the catacombs." I lifted 2 fingers and wrote a thin stroke in gray between us. No light, no sound, just a rule. A trail that only you will see. It ignores their mirrors and their decoys. It'll take you to her. Her jaw set. Understood. Reika was there before I finished. I shadow. Outer ring. No speeches. She brushed Rose's shoulder. A quick, solid touch, and was gone with her. "Rachel," I said. "Redeemers to the East Quarter. Lanterns dim. If they try to turn a room into a mouth, close the teeth." "On it," she said, voice already soft and steady on the command channel. "Cecilia," I said, "salt their ducks. If you smell performance, hum offbeat." She grinned without joy. "I'll make their fire stutter." "Serafina," I said, "if they spike heat through stone, turn it into ice and make it stop." She nodded once, braid tight, eyes colder than the plan. Erebus stood in the doorway like a shadow drawn with bone. "Anchors. 2 per corridor," I told him. "No tunnels closing on us tonight." He smiled without a mouth. "Always." Lyra and Tiamat listened from the back. Lyra's voice came quiet and clear. "If you taste the cadence we showed you, do not test it. Call me." "I will," I said. Brother lived under the word and didn't need saying. I didn't take a squad to the graveyard. I took Valeria honest on my hip, Luna quiet in my lungs, and 2 redeemers because memory needs witnesses. We crossed the city in 3 turns. Gray smoothed the lines under my feet and made the streets forget they were long. The graveyard sat where Avalon stops, pretending it isn't old. Low wall, black iron. Names that still feel warm when the day refuses to leave. Redeemer lanterns made small islands in the dark. It was quiet, good quiet. Gray opened again because I asked it to. The pages parted. The graves arranged themselves as relations. Grief to name, name to oath, oath to the path a man takes when he promises something he doesn't understand. That path ran down the center lane and stopped at a stone set a little apart. Alara. I closed Gray. I walked. He was already there. Jack Blazespout knelt at Alara's grave like he'd remembered how to do one thing right. No entourage. No show magic curling off his hands. Just a coat he wore to feel human, and shoulders that weren't as proud as I remembered. The Redeemers hung back without a word. Their lantern light gilded the names. Someone had left a string of blue paper flowers at the base of Alara's stone. They moved even though the air didn't. Jack didn't look at me. He looked at her name. His voice was low, like he was talking to a person who might answer if he said it gently enough. I told you I'd burn them all, he said. It didn't sound like boasting. It sounded like a vow that had gotten lost on the way to being kept. That promise is late, I said. He didn't flinch. He lifted his head and met my eyes. For a heartbeat I saw the academy boy he used to be. Tall, loud. Sure the world would clap when he snapped his fingers. Arthur, he said. Not Grandmaster. Not hero. Just my name. You're kneeling in front of someone who deserved better than your kind of fire, I said. Stand up. He stood. Slow. He didn't glance at Valeria. He glanced at the lanterns. Then at the string of paper flowers like it surprised him that someone else remembered to be kind. Your people are under the city again, he said. I came to tell you. I know, I said. Rose is on the line. His mouth tightened a fraction at her name. Old history. Old failure. I'm not here to bargain, he said. Good, I said. I'm not here to forgive. He almost smiled at that. Of course you're not. The Redeemer behind me shifted a boot. The lantern chimed once against its ring. Jack's eyes moved to the light and back. He did a small, tired calculation in his head. He knew how this could end. Leave, I said. Or kneel and stay very still until I say otherwise. He shook his head, one small no. Not yet, he said, voice gone soft. Let me have a minute. Alara's minutes were yours to protect, I said. You wasted them. His jaw moved like a man chewing a truth he didn't like. He didn't answer. Under the city, something sharp cracked. Far away, the note a ritual makes when a circle sours. Rose's voice came over our private thread. Steady. Found her. Your trail held. Beginning the cut. Copy, I said. I'm at Alara. Gray flexed at the edge of thought. I let it crack open just enough to taste the path around us. The graves were stone and names. The air was honest. The ground was wrong. Thin lines under the topsoil, near the base of 6 stones around Alara's. Not strong. Set to wake under a certain weight. A pattern a man like Jack would draw when he wanted to make a point ugly. Jack? I said. Eyes still on him, voice even. What did you plant? He didn't look away. He had the sense to keep his hands where I could see them. A farewell, he said. Valeria warmed in my palm without leaving the sheath. Trap. She breathed against my skin. Small teeth. Cruel teeth. Rachel, I said on the open Redeemer band, keeping my voice the same size. Static. Don't move your lanterns. Holding, she said at once. There was a shift in the air behind me as both Redeemers eased their balance onto their heels. Disarm, Valeria suggested, almost amused. We can draw a clean line. Not yet, I thought back. Jack finally looked down. His left hand was flat on the top edge of Alara's stone. His right hand curled on his knee. The skin over his knuckles was too smooth for a man who'd done the work he pretended to do. The smoothness of someone who let others carry the load while he lit the match. I loved her, he said. You killed her, I said. He swallowed. I killed her. We stood like that for the length of one bad memory. The lanterns breathed. The city's night ran around the wall like water. Then his right hand twitched small, almost nothing, toward the edge of the stone. Gray blew open on its own. The 2 pages slammed outward. The 6 thin lines under the topsoil lit up between them like threads dragged across bone. Each line ran to a tiny seal coin buried at the foot of the nearest stone. The coins wanted one thing: weight, heat, and a name spoken in the right voice. Jack drew breath. Don't, I said. He smiled without humor. You think I came to leave, Arthur? The buried coin at Alara's feet warmed. The gray page showed a spark crawling toward it. Valeria's voice sharpened. Now, I moved, and the graves around us answered with a soft, rising hum. I never liked kneeling. Too much theater, not enough leverage. But I'm on my knees now because I deserve it, and because this headstone carries a name I don't get to say out loud anymore. Alara. The stone is colder than my hands. The paper flower someone left here move even though the air is still. I feel him before I see him, wait on the world that wasn't there. Then is Nightingale. Good. I wanted him to be here to watch. My mind drags me backward whether I want it to or not. The moment he smiled, I knew I was going to die. Not because he showed teeth. Because the world around him changed its mind. My nirvana and abyssal flames were a certainty. Everything burns if you're stubborn enough. I threw them anyway, purple-white spirals meant to erase a city block. He held up a hand and my power turned into petals. Not blocked. Not countered. Just not fire anymore. A garden fell around us. Trees with books for leaves. Flowers with stories in their veins. Mythweaver's Garden, he said, like the name of a place should be allowed to rewrite physics. I screamed and punched and bled and he let me. Every time I built heat, butterflies. Every time I tried to be clever, the rules changed again. He wasn't posturing. He wasn't angry. He was past both. That's the part that hurt. You loved her, he said, and then he broke my ribs. He wasn't wrong. When the killing blow came down, it stopped on a black rose. Not a trick of shadow. A flower that ate light and made it taste like silk and iron. A voice slid out of it, soft as poison. Not yet, young Nightingale. This story requires a different ending. The garden flickered. He pulled his hand back, eyes narrowing, trying to feel a thread that wasn't his. The rose became a door. I fell through it because I had no choice, because my story was bought and paid for by a woman who thinks in knives and prayers. The door took me to a room under the city where the air tasted like old blood and chalk and choices I wasn't brave enough to make. Her Holiness Evelyn sat on a stone chair and looked at me like a problem she had already solved. You failed, she said. Yes, I said, because I'm a liar, but not about that. You lived, she added, which wasn't completely my fault. Yes. Get up, she said. Then get better. So I did. Back in the present. My fingers press into the top edge of Alara's stone. My other hand stays open on my knee. Don't startle the Redeemers. Don't give the Saintess an excuse to draw light through my skull. I can feel Arthur's gaze like a hand on my shoulder. He says stand. I stand. He says leave. I don't. I loved her. I tell him, because it's ugly and true. You killed her, he answers, because it's uglier and still true. He's right. He usually is. That's the problem. 3 years is a long time to stay afraid. I used all of it. I learned every page the fallen flame keeps locked. Not the showy rites they use to recruit children who want to glow. The buried meth. The pressure cuts. The way to pull heat out of stone without leaving your fingerprints behind. I held abyssal fire in my mouth until my gums bled. I slept with nirvana embers under my tongue until I could wake without choking. I watched a line of ink draw circles I couldn't admit I wanted to step into, and I didn't step because I needed a power I could carry outside a room with chalk on the floor. I let them break my channels and rebuilt them knotted, so when someone tried to turn my flame into butterflies again, the knot would catch the trick and feed it ash. I learned a new language in Assault Vault favored by the Tidewalkers before we killed them. Their pressure songs aren't ours, but pressure is pressure, and a flame that can hear is a flame that can refuse. I wrote 7 oaths on 7 bones. Not blood. Ink. Ground from old soot and regret and something Her Holiness gave me without telling me the price. Each oath cut away a cowardice. First, I will not bargain with elation. Second, I will not apologize to my hands. Third, I will not pretend I was tricked. Fourth, I will not speak her name to make pity the point. Fifth, I will not take the small victory if the large failure still stands. Sixth, I will not ask the wrong people to forgive me. Seventh, I will not forget that I loved her. Alara, I didn't write. That one doesn't get ink. When I ran heat through those bones, something new woke up along with the old. Not nirvana, not abyss. Those are colors. This wasn't a color. I call it Requiem Ember because everything needs a name, and that one makes the inner zealots shake. It doesn't burn matter first. It burns outcomes. It eats the path a thing is trying to take. If someone decides my fire is butterflies, Requiem makes the decision combust. The butterflies can exist somewhere else. Not here. I trained it until my jaw ached. I failed 100 times and woke in salt on stone to try again. I imagined his garden every night until my teeth hurt and fed that memory to the ember until the memory stopped tasting like fear and started tasting like fuel. Because he was always coming back stronger. Of course he was. Heroes make a living out of doing impossible things while people clap. I had to build something that didn't care about applause. Not to beat him. I'm not stupid. To stand upright when he looks at me like a problem that learned to read. The hum under my knees is mine. Not a bomb. A bell. 6 coins under 6 stones around her grave. Set shallow with care. Tuned to weight and heat, and a voice that remembers how I said her name when I still believed good things couldn't die. I brought a bell to a grave because grief is a better pry bar than rage if you have the hands for it. He hears it. Of course he does. His blade murmurs in its sheath, and I hate that it has a voice, hate that I envy the way it likes him. Don't, he says. I'm already doing it. The coins answer one by one. No fire. No light. Just a pressure change that makes the night tilt in place and a sound a gate makes before it becomes a door. Not his gate. Mine. I built this pry over 3 years and 7 oaths and the kind of practice that leaves you with cracked lips and a throat full of smoke. I built it because facing him as I was then would be a mercy killing. I press my palm flat on Alara's stone and let every lie I've ever told burn out of me at once. The world folds like paper right above my head. Not platinum silver. Not his pretty doors. Mine are black iron edged in chalk and ash. They smell like wet matches and old promises. They're ugly. They suit me. The gates of transcendence don't owe anyone anything. They ask one question. Are you ready to be crushed into a shape that won't run? 3 years ago I would have run. I don't run. The iron parts a finger's width and the night roars in. Heat, then cold, then the absence of both. For a heartbeat I see her in the space between. Violet eyes, that museum smile, patient and too kind. It hurts like truth. I let it. Requiem ember lights in my ribs, small and absolute. A coal that eats the path where fear would walk. Nirvana wraps it. Abyss feeds it. The 7 oaths stack around it like ribs. I push. The chalk line snaps. The iron yawns. Every channel I own catches, not like fire, like a gear finally finding teeth. Power lands in me the way a verdict lands. Not joy. Not relief. Fit. High radiant isn't bright. It's heavy. The pressure throws dust in a ring without lifting a single petal someone left at her stone. The Redeemer's lanterns shiver and then steady. The Saintess will feel it wherever she is and hate it. Good. I want her to. I stand without my knees arguing about it. The stone under my palm is warm now. My hands don't shake. I told you I'd burn them all. I say, and this time it isn't theater. He stares at me. He's still stronger. He will be stronger again tomorrow because that's what he does. But for once, I didn't ask the wrong person to forgive me. For once, I brought my own door. I open my right hand and the new flame shows itself. Not purple. Not white. Not black. A color your eyes don't know where to put. It doesn't lick. It writes. Requiem Ember. Watch me. I tell the stone. Not him. Her. I'll pay for it. The graveyard hum rises. The 6 coins finish their last note, and the iron behind my teeth stops, tasting like fear. I look up at him and smile in a way that hurts my face. Round 2, I say. Alara's name on the marble was the last human thing between us. Not here, I said. Jack didn't look away from the stone. Never here. We both turned. I opened a clean lane through Ouroboros, short hop, no witnesses, and stepped through first. Courtesy pings went out as my feet left Avalon. North, west, east, central, south. 1 line each, training area request, no approach. 2 answers came back almost on top of each other. North, corridor clear. West, don't die without me watching.
J.
I dropped onto powder gray rock and old wind. No towns, no shrines, just the skelled wastes. Flat shelves of basalt and broken glass. A sky the color of cold iron, the kind of place the world forgot to name. Jack stepped out after me and the world got heavier. High Radiant wasn't just more mana. It was presence, the imprint of a gate that had opened and left a shape behind. His aura settled like a second horizon. Iron chalk edges sketched in the air. The heat around him didn't glow. It decided. He flexed his left hand, and the air above his palm bent. Not flame, not light, something that made decisions change their mind. Requiem Ember, he said quietly, like a confession. A twist of color bloomed, wrong and beautiful, and every drifting fleck of dust that meant to fall near his palm simply didn't. They landed already finished, as if the falling had happened somewhere I wasn't invited. It wasn't gray. My gray writes which places touch. His ember writes which outcomes survive. You're stronger than Reverian, I said. No point lying to myself. Good, Jack said. I trained for you, not him. Valeria warmed at my hip. No stages, she murmured. This ground is honest. Do your work. I lifted my left hand and called the quiet I share with Luna. Lucent harmony. Tranquility spread like cool cloth on a fever. The skelled air stopped being petty. The ground agreed to be steady. That was for the world, not for him. For me, I turned on everything I could carry without breaking the floor. Sword laws I'd written this month until they lived in muscle, 9 circle circuits humming under skin, breath on 4s, Valeria's line as simple as it gets. No gray. Not yet. Ready? I asked. Jack's eyes were raw and steady at once. I have been for 3 years. He moved first. The Requiem Ember wasn't a fireball. It was a ribbon, thin, perfect, coiling from my ankle like a trip line laid by a god. I stepped and cut. First truth, no bounce, bite clean, and the edge should have met the ribbon and ended it. Didn't. The ember wrote no on the outcome where my edge bit first. My cut slipped a hair, like the world pretended my decision had never existed. Seraphina's pencil would have chirped drift. I didn't force it. I shrunk the truth. Hand bubble tighter than a fist. Law thinner than a breath. Valeria adjusted her balance on my palm like a cat picking a new perch. The second bite took. The ribbon split with a sound like a string snapping in another room. Jack was already on me, faster than before, weight and timing both singing High Radiant. His footwork was clean. His hands carried both Nihility and Nirvana heat, white and violet, braided, with Requiem inked into the braid like black handwriting on silk. He threw a crosscut. I met it and felt my counter try to become something gentler. His ember had reached for the decision inside my swing, deflect and return, and tried to turn it into deflect and stop. I let the return die, changed my mind mid-nerve, pivoted instead into shortest line. Chalk to chalk, no flourish, no second act. He expected the end I'd planned. I gave him a new start. My edge kissed his wrist. No blood, ember skin, thin as glass, but he felt it. Good, he said. It wasn't a taunt. It was grief and approval mixed together. He spread his fingers and wrote a circle of requiem around us. Flames that weren't flames bloomed. Petals of a color that your eyes want to call purple until your head hurts. Not heat. Edits. A ring that said, certain things don't happen here. Wind didn't pick up where it should. Pebbles didn't bounce when they landed. The world stopped doing little chores. I put harmony under my own feet. If his ember eats outcomes, then I don't promise any. No fancy steps that end at a named spot. Just movement that keeps deciding while it's happening. Valeria hummed in agreement and shifted the weight of her blade a fraction closer to the guard. We traded 6, then 12, then 30 touches that weren't quite hits and weren't quite misses. Every time I started a technique, his ember dipped a hand into the ending and tried to spill it. Every time he started a cage, I refused to acknowledge it as inevitable and cut the part that declared itself first. My sword laws, first bite, shortest line, carry through, exit clean, didn't break. They adjusted mid-syllable. Then he showed me why high radiant mattered. He didn't throw power. He sustained it. Where my circuits sang at their comfortable peak, his shouldered more and asked for seconds. A double-layer spiral, nirvana outside, abyssal inside, wrapped in requiem ink, came down from above like a collar meant to claim my neck. I lifted Valeria to guard and reached for my most reliable cheat. Lightning in the muscles, a step that turns distance into a suggestion. The ember touched the destination and wrote not there. My lightning step landed 2 feet short. He was already there to meet me. His fist came like a piston. I rocked with it, took the energy into my hips, and dumped it into the ground, then brought the ground back up as a counter. Earth didn't quite want to rise. His ring had written against small chores, but harmony convinced it that we were still doing honest work. Stone answered. His boots skidded, just enough. Loosened harmony, he said, eyes flicking once at my feet. Cute. It's not for you, I said. We separated a breath and then collapsed the space between us again. He threw a requiem net, thin, wide, made of threads that didn't want me so much as they wanted to break all follow-through inside them. A little story. Everything inside here is incomplete. He meant to starve my carry-through law and make every cut chatter. I didn't argue with the net. I walked smaller truths inside it. First bite becomes first touch, becomes first grain. The law shrank to a point under my skin. The blade bit anyway because I told it one tiny thing, not 3 proud ones. The net hissed as if disappointed. Of course, Jack said, and caught my elbow with a requiem flare. He didn't stop my swing. He stopped the decision to angle it for his shoulder. My cut arrived harmless across his mantle. The ember wrote, no angle. I swore once and made my next cut shape angle last. He smiled and let me have the point. Learning. He vanished. No glamour, just high radiant speed and a subtraction of friction where he wanted it. He reappeared at my back with a palm full of requiem pressed toward the base of my skull. Valeria snarled in my hand. Down. I dropped, angle collapsed, and stabbed backward with a stupid little reverse thrust that had no dignity and all the utility. It didn't have an ending for him to cancel. It was just metal in a place. He had to move. Good. He countered with something I hadn't felt before. A low thrum from the ember that wasn't about canceling my moves. It was about asserting his. A decree. This next flame will be the last decision in the space it touches. Requiem flared. A line drew itself from his palm to my heart, the world between temporarily agreeing that nothing else got to edit that line. I met decree with refusal. Not gray. That would have ended the lesson too early. I used the oldest truth I own. This line ends where I say. I layered it on Valeria's body. Not the world. Personal law, not universal one. The flame reached my rib, found that the last decision belonged to a sword, and blinked. It didn't die. It hesitated. I put the hesitation on the floor with the rest of our mistakes. We reset again, both breathing harder. He had more air left. High radiant does that. His reserves could feed this for hours. My mid-radiant body would start to complain eventually. So I stopped being polite. 9 circle circuits, full run. Lightning chained to muscle, gravity tucked under the heel, wind braided through the next 3 steps. Space bent a thumb width so his reeds arrive late. I framed one edge with deep dark whisper and lit the other with almost pure light, just enough to make the ember pick a side and be wrong. He answered with the thing he'd built, the power that belonged to him and not to his teachers. The requiem ember coiled around his shoulders and sank into his ribs. The air went very still. Requiem mantle, he said. Outcome tax. He lunged. Every exchange cost me something. A choice. Path. A tiny piece of what I meant to do skimmed off the top and turned into ash that fell at our feet. He was taxing my intent and turning the tax into weapon fuel. I cut smaller and faster and nearer. Taxes don't bite as deep when the economy is local. He grimaced and turned the mantle outward, letting it own a patch of the battlefield the size of a cartwheel. Inside the wheel, every choice wanted to end like he wrote it. Fine. I didn't go inside. I made him come out. I threw Godflash, no, not the big one. A thin sheet. Promise of what it could be. He tilted the mantle to eat the ending and leave the stair. He stepped through the holes he'd made in my move and almost took my ear. I bled a little. Felt like a contract signing. He smiled once, small and real. Round 2, he said. Round now, I answered. We stopped talking. He split the ember into 6 neat threads and wove them around my ribs like a harp. Every time I thought angle left, a thread plucked no. I stopped thinking angles. I moved pressure. I let Valeria drag my hips where she wanted. She knows lines better than I do. He tried to cancel my lightning steps destination again. I didn't give it a destination. I gave it a range. The step landed near somewhere good and became good on arrival. He frowned. He tried to break my carry-through by taxing the second motion more than the first. I bent the rule. Second motion begins before the first resolves. He tried to tax both. Taxes don't fit well when events overlap. He hissed in frustration. I went for his left knee with a nothing cut. Just a line in space. He wrote no on the intent inside it. I changed my mind mid-swing and hit his ankle instead. He snarled and wrote no across the floor. We both slipped. We both laughed. It was awful. Then we stopped laughing because the ground behind him turned to glass where the mantle leaked a mark I didn't want to see anywhere civilized. Enough. Valeria, I said out loud. Yes. Full plate. Armor plates unfurled from the blade, light, clean, not ostentatious. Locking over my forearms, shins, heart. Not to look big. To make truths easier to carry. The suit was a ritual you could walk in. I let harmony deepen until the air forgot how to lie. I tightened every small law until they were almost prayer. Then I moved and the world kept up. Jack met me with everything he had built to spite his own regret. The wastes rang. His ember wrote on my endings. My edge erased his handwriting. His mantle taxed my choices. I paid with small coins and kept my big plans in my pocket. He flooded the field with nirvana/abyssal helixes that weren't about heat at all. They were about finality. I answered with water that refused to reach equilibrium until I said it could, with space that wouldn't anchor where he wanted unless it had my signature. Steel spoke to bone. Bone spoke back. A mile of glass spidered out from our feet. He pressed. High radiant reserves let him press forever. I felt the edge of the place where talent becomes stubbornness and stubbornness becomes need. Valeria's voice was very soft. You've learned everything you can learn at this speed. I nodded once, and Jack saw the nod, and some part of him flinched because he remembered a garden of myths and butterflies. No, he said, voice hoarse. I didn't answer. I opened a page. Not the garden. Not the whole book. Just 2 flat sheets of gray overlapping the air between us. Thin as rice paper, ordinary as a table. The wastes turned quiet in a way that made even the wind remember it used to be a story someone chose to tell. Jack's next thread of requiem reached for the ending of my cut and found there were 2 places the ending could be, both true, both touching. His ember couldn't write no on both. Stuttered. I stepped through the point where the 2 pages met and put my edge under his mantle. Not on it. He saw it. He screamed and poured requiem until the sky shook. We moved. We moved. Jack's mantle pressed. My small truths held. The wastes kept score by laying new glass in spider tracks. He swam the ember like it was an extra set of joints. 6 threads combed my choices. Every time my mind wrote an ending, 1 thread flicked no. I stopped writing endings. I wrote starts. Valeria settled closer to the guard. her hum low and steady. Soul resonance isn't a spell. It's my second gift. When I choose, when I'm close enough to feel a rhythm, it mirrors a sliver of someone's gift inside me for a breath or three. Not theft. Not permanent. A temporary copy that runs on my rules. I touched his cadence and let resonance bite. Requiem ember came through. Thin, imperfect, a reflection in rippled water. I didn't get the whole cathedral. I got a clause, a veto, a one-beat ability to say, in his voice, not that outcome. He flicked a requiem ribbon at my ankle, trip line laid by a god. I cut. First truth, hand-sized, and felt his ember reach for the ending to spill it. I mirrored the clause. Soul resonance wrote a micro-no on his no. My cut didn't grow stronger. It just didn't get edited. The ribbon snapped with a sound like a string breaking in another room. Jack saw it. His eyes narrowed. You copied me. For a heartbeat, I said. It's all I need. He rolled the mantle outward. A ring of edits unfurled with a soft click. Inside it, pebbles refused to bounce. My breath almost forgot to finish the third count. 9 circle, he said, voice low. Requiem litany, pallbearer's march. The ring taxed movement, not just intent. If I moved through, the march skimmed momentum and fed it into the ash gear over his heart. 9 circle circuits woke under my feet. Bahamut method, gravity loom. Invisible threads dropped from the sky and tied soft anchors into the ground in a grid like a child's string game. The loom tracked relative change and stored it. When the march skimmed, the loom returned a whisper. Not energy. Permission. The kind that keeps a step honest when a thief is skimming off the top. He layered a second litany. 9 circle requiem mass. Wake of silence. Sound didn't die. Conclusions did. The mass archived outcomes on contact and told new ones they were late to their own funeral. He stepped into that quiet and brought a helix of nirvana / abyssal down like a collar. Sword first bite, hand-sized. Then, 9 circle Bahamut method. Prism sanctuary. Lucent harmony framed in 6 planes of geometry. Not a dome sanctuary you carry. The prism didn't stop his helix. It refracted the claws inside it. My outcomes ran on my clock, not his. He grunted once. Of course you built a church. You built a tax office, I said. We all have hobbies. He pushed the mantle wider. The march skimmed every swing that looked like an answer. I cut coin-sized laws and kept my economy local. He dropped the wake of silence until even my knee's decision to lock carried a surcharge. Fine. 9 circle, Bahamut method. Starfall refraction. Circles pulsed under my boots. Tiny, stuttering, set by ugly sequence. Each time his mantle skimmed, the refraction fed a wrong path back along his skim. Not damage. Noise. It made his clerk misfile. He snarled and showed the thing he'd built to win, not to impress. Requiem mantle outcome tax. He lunged. Every exchange cost me a sliver of what I meant to do. Skimmed and crushed into ash that fed the gear. I mirrored the clause twice with resonance. 2 tiny vetoes that bought space, nothing more. Copying costs. My mirror stuttered, then cooled. Good. Use it like a scalpel, not a habit. He answered with a new 9 circle. The air went still. 9 circle requiem mass. Bell of no tomorrow. The gear turned. An inaudible bell swung. Every plan in a 10-pace circle tried to arrive early and die. The ground glazed. Valeria went quiet for a blink. Lucent harmony grounded me. Then I changed instruments. Aguirre diagram. Tide inversion. For currents, 3 delays, 1 drum. A water lattice prefers cycles over ends. The bell rang and Aguirre answered not yet. His policy frowned. He stacked more. Funeral constellation. Dirge of ash. Stars of intent lit along my most likely lanes. Step where a sane swordsman should and you pay pain as toll. Loom, I said, and stepped almost there. The loom paid with a stored mistake. Stars flared and died. Confused. Erebus from a pocket that smelled like winter. Perimeter holds. I'm catching shed outcomes before they breed. Try not to mint a new saint of bad ideas. Working on it, I said. Jack split the ember threads, 12 now, and stitched them into the dirt. A snare for follow-through. Every line Valeria left behind tried to crawl back and turn into fuel. Resonance again, brief, precise. I mirrored a different facet. His habit of reading the decision inside my motion. For one beat I read his. He reached to cancel angle. I wrote angle last and he grabbed air. We ping-ponged. The wastes wore it. He pressed me to the edge of an old lava river and widened the wake until even a pebble trying to tumble was forced to reconsider. I met it with Bahamut anchors bigger than I liked. Circuits sang close to red. Valeria's hum sharpened. Now! I put a page down. Not to erase him. To make a seam. Gray is 2 flat sheets of ordinary where stories get awkward. I set them at an angle only I could love. His next edit came on an ending that now had 2 mouths. Ember stuttered. Tax misfiled worse. Don't you dare, he hissed. Don't bring a cathedral to a library, I said. He overrode with rank and the page flexed. Twice, then it was paper again. I used both breaths. 9-circle, Bahamut method. 1,000-fold anchor. A forest of hair-thin, single-use anchors, each one owning a grain of air. Requiem hates certainties it didn't write. It spent tax to chew through 100 before it could breathe. Then a quiet art. God flash. Split horizon. No roar. A horizontal cut that belonged to 2 halves of a world for a heartbeat. His mantle caught the top story. My edge lived under it where the tax hadn't arrived yet. The cut kissed the gear. Hairline fracture. Jack didn't scream. He bit down and rang the bell again. A line of violet-white ran down his cheek. His flames refused theater. His ember wrote pay anyway. He paid. Requiem mass, wake of silence. Closing right. The ring became a room. Walls of edit, ceiling of tax. Inside, every plan checked a clerk with his handwriting. Breath on 4s. On 5s. Miserable 6s. 4s again. I found the seam. Valeria sang 1 note. I stepped through the 2 gray pages at an ugly angle. The seam in the wake met the seam between pages. 2 awkward truths shook hands and let me slip past the clerk. I arrived in his guard. He'd expected me at the door. I was in the hallway. I slid Valeria up past his elbow and down in a tiny arc that existed mostly to say hello to the fracture I'd already made. Don't, he whispered. Don't make me, I said. He made me. He threw his last new thing with everything high radiant lets you spend. 9-circle, Requiem canticle. Sovereign wake. Not dragon sovereignty. A swollen policy that said, no other voices in this circle unless I invoice them after. It ate the 1,000-fold anchor like a grinder, made my loom grind teeth, turned my prism into glass. He stepped forward like a man paying for his own execution. Resonance, full copy a sliver, not the fire. I mirrored 1 clause only, the hinge where his nirvana stillness and abyssal end negotiated and Requiem sat between them like a judge. For 1 beat, I owned the rule about unanimity. I wrote a note in his language. Unanimity requires consent. I did not consent. On top, I laid a 9-circle over it. Bahamut method, starfall refraction. Final. Orbits underfoot. Falling stars hit his ceiling and returned with receipts. Each invoice the wake filed hit a desk that had already stamped paid elsewhere. He roared wordless grief and brought his palm down. I raised Valeria and cut as gently as I could and still mean it. The gear cracked. The bell made a flat sound and died. He stumbled, didn't fall. High radiance saved bone. Blood came, human and honest. He looked up through ash and open eyes. Again? He asked. 1 more, I said. We moved. He laid the funeral constellation again. The stars lacked their old zeal. The cracked gear taxed slower. My loom and refraction had lanes. The prism had teeth. I didn't try to outlast him. I stacked compression, art into art until the world had to agree or choke. God flash as veil. First bite inside the veil. Shortest line sewn down by 2 anchors. Carry through that began before it decided to exist. Exit clean buried in sheath. On top, 2 9 circles braided, ugly overhead and all. Bahamut, gravity loom, on the ankles. Agir, tide inversion, on the wrists. Feet had permission. Hands refused drama. He answered with a new choir. 9 circle, requiem oratorio. Black procession. Masks rose, ash and intent carrying paperwork. Every time my blade completed a thought, a mask stamped void and tried to pass the void into the ember. I could play that for 5 seconds and then be a document. Soul resonance again. Copy only what helps, only for a breath. I mirrored the proof clause inside his procession. If you void, you must keep a record. Then I met it with my own 9 circle. Bahamut method. Archive of virtue. A library floor under my feet. Every honest cut leaves one mark the archive keeps. Masks stamped. The archive asked for their copy. They had none. Stamps fell through. Jack bared his teeth. You're the worst kind of cheat. You invented taxes. Don't cry about audits. He didn't. He lunged. The requiem ember stopped reading as editor and started writing as pen. A line from his heart to mine, meant to spend him to finish the sentence. A self-written end. Valeria's voice in my palm. Don't make his death her final kindness. I wouldn't. Gray pages down. Not to erase him, to place a seam. Then, 9 circle Bahamut method. Seam kintsugi. 2 gray sheets like ceramic. A hairline of loosened harmony traced along the seam to make it one thing. His requiem line reached and found no place to overwrite. It went past me into basalt and died drunk on its own importance. He blinked like a child, then ugly laughed. You glued paper with calm. He hurled his right hand up and spoke a thesis that makes old men leave rooms. 9 circle, dead sun thesis. Point where heat remembers God. It doesn't explode. It forbids return to baseline. Cuts inside it are permanent. No, I said. Gray would end it. I chose something else. Resonance, copy Nirvana's still heat alone. No abyss. No requiem. Then I set it inside loosened harmony. 9 circle, lucent method. Quiet star. No glow. A point where cuts remain honest because they do not wish to be remembered. The dead sun pressed. The quiet star refused to be a story. Jack flinched like slapped by a child he loved. Then he smiled, thanks, hate. Please, stop in one look. And threw everything left. Requiem ember, last wake. Grief with a budget. Came for archive, loom, star, prism, seam. It wanted to turn me into a sentence that ended with ash. Respect for respect. No gray. God flash. 2 places. 1 cut that belongs to 2 coordinates. Valeria loves it because it's the only time I let her be pretty. I move the world a hair under my foot and let the cut live in overlap. The last wake split and tried to close after. Archive asked for paperwork. Loom tied its ankles. Quiet star gave it nothing to hold. Prism kept my breath clean. The cut landed across the mantle and chest. Not a bisect. A fold. The mantle tore. The gear shattered. Jack dropped to one knee and caught himself. High radiant kept him from coming apart. Blood went down his chin, not dramatic, just present. He looked up, open for once. Please, he said. Not mercy. Meaning. There are clean kills. Clean refusals. This was a third thing. Erebus, I said. Bone rose, columns in an empty chapel. Not a prison. A brace. A cool place the ember did not want to sit in. Erebus stepped from his shadow. Skull tilted like a polite bird. Heal him enough to keep the parts that can learn, I said. Of course, he said, and wrote 3 dead letters. Bleeding eased to something a conversation could carry. Jack coughed ash and red and something that wasn't either. The wastes took it like they take wind. You win. I win this, I said. Not you. He nodded like a student who finally understood a page and hated the handwriting. The gates of transcendence tilted near. Close. Closer than last week. Weight gathered near my heart. 1 step and I could learn a new way to carry truth. Valeria squeezed my palm. Not on his back. I stepped away. The weight cooled. Gates faded to their patient platinum silver certainty. I'll earn them without turning Jack into a rung Alara wouldn't step on. Gray tugged my spine toward a thread that smelled like velvet and knives. Rose. I opened a lane through Ouroboros and didn't ask permission. Erebus nodded without needing thanks and closed the bone like hands around a candle that shouldn't go out yet. I stepped into quiet. A garden spread in terraces of dark stone and dew. Blue roses climbed trellises and spilled over paths, their petals bending light into soft wrong angles the way Rose likes. Edges gentled, corners honest only when you look twice. Wind moved, but only where the flowers allowed. The world kept its voice low. She stood at the center, back to me, hands loose at her sides. The air around her had changed wider, steadier. A clean hinge shift in pressure. Not show. Rank. Mid-radiant. Her paradox didn't tug anymore. It agreed and then chose. Blue sigils pulsed under her feet and settled like they belonged there long before tonight. Pride hit first. Relief second. Then the tired hurt I hadn't had time to sort. I didn't call her name. I walked across the path the roses made for me and set Valeria's weight quiet against my hip. Loosened harmony softened the footfall I couldn't take back. When I reached her, I put my arms around her from behind, palms flat over the line of her ribs, cheek to her shoulder. No speech. Just weight and warmth and the promise that the fight was over here, at least for this breath. Her back rose against me once, sharp and shaking, then steadied. The blue roses around our feet opened in a hush like a crowd deciding to be kind. Her new rank settled fully then, mid-radiant ringing true under my hands. I closed my eyes. The garden held its breath. The old glasshouse on Avalon's east ridge still stood. Steel ribs, shattered panes, a floor choked in black roses that had no right to grow in salt-poor soil. Wind hissed through the broken teeth of the roof. Every step crunched. Every shadow looked like a trap set years ago and left to wait. Evelyn waited at the center path, hands folded, veil dark as oil. Her presence pressed on the room the way a verdict presses on a defendant. No drama, just wait. "Daughter," she said. "Name's Rose," I said, and kept walking. Her lips tilted. "Names are for tools. Tools get labels, then storage." "Good," I said. "Label this end." I let my gift breathe. Blue roses unfolded around my boots. Not many, just enough. The air steadied. Choices opened like doors cracking on their hinges. Evelyn's gift answered. Black roses climbed the rusted lattice, petals drinking light. The room narrowed with them. Options shrank. We didn't posture. We went to work. She moved first. 9 circles spun around her wrist. Clean, hard, textbook perfect. Black thorns gathered, twisted tight, and slashed at my midline. Oblivion Arc 9. Anything it crossed would be written out of the scene: ground, bone, air. I didn't meet it head-on. I laid a blue petal in its path with one clear instruction. Be read twice. The arc hit the petal, stuttered, shaved a strip of floor instead of my ribs, and buried itself in dead soil. "Parlor trick," she said. 9 circle claws, I said. "You taught the basics." I kept going. Her eyes didn't change. "You were built to carry weight, not opinions."
I put my palm up.
9 circles lit, sky blue, steady. "Azure split 9, I said, and cut the room into 2 safe lanes that only I could see. I stepped into one. The path ahead opened. Her black petals snapped shut where I wasn't. She wrote a new problem. Black roses sank into the floor. The tiles under me went slick, then too rough, then vanished to trick the ankle. A floor made of bad decisions. I planted a blue rose at my heel and wrote one small rule. Steps count where I remember them. I remembered each step. The floor had to agree. She didn't blink. She lifted her left hand, and a brand showed on the back of it. Ink dark as space, lines like chains closing around a crown. The glass house's shadows went colder. "Meet him," Evelyn said calmly. "Erikel, demon lord of sloth." A voice passed over my skin like a rough glove. Not the full presence, just a taste through contract. The black roses tightened. Straps of shadow crept from plant to plant and cinched the room into smaller shapes. Borrowed power, I said. Least, she corrected. I pay in results. Chains struck. Not metal, decisions turned into links. They coiled for my forearms and throat. I threw blue petals into the links. Each petal said the same thing. Pick one thing to hold. The chains tried to hold everything. They chose wrong and slipped. She nodded once, almost approving. You've grown. You never looked, I said, and drove forward. 9 circle against 9 circle, simple and fast. I snapped a blue fold 9 at her. Space parted like opening a book, letting my ice dart cut the page and reappear behind her. She answered with Thorn Crown 9. A spinning ring of black bloom that erased the dart's endpoint and sent the trick back redrawn to bite me. I stepped aside. The return dart took a blue path and turned into a harmless gust. She tried to strangle the gust into stillness. I turned the stillness into a weight and dropped it on her ankle. She crushed it with a thought. Stop testing, she said, sounding bored. Bring the work that breaks you. I already brought it, I said. You're standing in it. She flicked her fingers. Chains combed the room. 3 snared my arm. A black rose bloomed above my shoulder and began to drink my range of motion. I didn't pull. Pulling plays to chains. I wrote a blue petal into the cuff that said, plain. Ends now. The cuff had to decide if it ended closing or ended opening. It opened. My elbow came free. She clamped harder with the contract. The brand on her hand glowed. Ericle's whisper turned into pressure. The room's edges clicked like gears. The black rose's gift and the demon's binding stacked. Pathways narrowed to a pin. I opened a lane through the middle anyway. Blue roses marched to the center path and held the space. Still wasteful, she said, annoyed. Always multiplying roads like a child drawing mazes. Men get highways, I said. We get alleys. I build highways. She was done talking. Another 9-circle construct spun. Final revision's younger cousin. Not the full rewrite, but close. Lines etched in the air. Petals closed into a wheel the size of a door. If it touched me, my next cast would become hers. Not control, but theft. I didn't try to outmuscle the wheel. I went under it. Blue brace 9, I said. 3 lines that pin a room to fair. Attack speed normalized. Range honest. No free steals. She pushed against the brace with Ericle's chains. The brace groaned but held. The brand flared. My teeth rang. See? She said. Leverage. I gave her mine. A clean, direct 9-circle sequence. Nothing clever. Frost Lance 9 overlaid with Gravity Comb 9. Cold to bite, weight to crush. She ate the frost with a black bloom, stripped the weight with the brand, and sent the remains back as the start of a net. Almost, she said. That's the word you say when you're about to lose, I answered. She finally got angry. It didn't show on her face. It showed in the number of black roses. They multiplied at once, eating the light. Seams crawled over the steel ribs. The whole glass house became a trap. I let my gift widen. Blue roses opened behind me, beside me, ahead of me. The room breathed with me instead of with her. The floor steadied under my feet. The wind that wasn't there stopped lying. 9-circle to 9-circle turned into gift to gift. Hers closed. Mine opened. Chains against lanes. We pressed. She was good. She stayed on me with clean timing and ugly tricks. A black thorn caught my shoulder and erased a line of skin. A chain bit my hip and turned a step into a stumble. I paid both and kept moving. Stop running, she said. I'm walking at you, I said and did. She tried a new angle, voice soft, ugly words. You're nothing without me. I built the frame. Your decoration. I set one blue rose between us with one sentence. I am not your work. The rose burned bright enough to tint the chains. She frowned at that. Not hurt. Inconvenienced. Ericle, she said. And the contract's pressure doubled. The brand's lines crawled up her arm. A black crown sketched itself over her hair. The chains surged. I felt the first tug in my chest. The pull that wants you to agree with the person who raised you, even if agreeing kills you. I let the feeling exist. Then I cut it off and threw it away. Round 2, I said. Her crown closed like a trap. I stepped forward to meet it. She brought the brand down like a hammer. Black chains fused into a collar midair and dropped. If it set, the next thing I cast would become Ericles. I raised my circles not to throw power, but to set the room's baseline. Azure Field 9, I said. Not a domain, Radiant doesn't do domains. A field. Fairground. Rules. Equal friction. Honest weight. No stolen endings. The collar hit the field and stalled like an engine taking bad fuel. I didn't stand there admiring it. I attacked where her contract needed to breathe. 9 circles spun. Blue Sever 9. A straight cut spell, no flourish. Its only job. Cut a binding without exploding the person wearing it. The blade of it wasn't steel. It was a blue line that wanted to be kind and wouldn't apologize for not being cruel. I aimed at the thin strand from brand to crown. Evelyn saw it, of course. She shoved the strand sideways with a black rose, turning the cut into a miss. The rose hissed as it took the hit and healed. Cheap, she said. Safe, I said. She countered with Null Bloom 9. Black petals that cancel the sentence inside the next cast they touch. She threw 3 at once to box me. I responded with Step Clause 9. A short teleport that chooses among 3 pre-approved safe arrivals. The Bloom's 8-1 option. The second closed. I took the third and landed at her flank. She tried to rake me with the brand. I caught her wrist in a blue lock that didn't hold the bone. It held the decision to strike. For one breath, her hand forgot that it wanted to move. She broke it the next breath. Low Radiant versus Low Radiant favors the one who spent more years choosing to be hated. She had. It didn't matter. Her pattern was on the table now. Look at yourself, I said. You still think I'm a pen. You're a pen with longer ink, she said, and drew 9 circles that braided with Ericle's pressure until the air whined. Let's see how much. She spoke a word that wasn't human. The brand flashed. Black roses across the house opened at once. The collar reformed in the ceiling and fell again, wider, lined with barbs that ate angles, not skin. I didn't try to dodge it. I finished the sentence I'd been writing since I was 12 and too afraid to speak above a whisper. Blue Garden 9, I said. Not a domain, just a room where my gift feels at home. Blue roses filled the glasshouse from ankle to waist. Nothing dramatic. Petals touched chains and wrote simple edits. Hold only one thing at a time. Don't invent rules. Leave space to breathe. The collar hit the garden and faltered. The barbs chose one target each and ran out. Evelyn stared at the room as if it were a rude guest. You brought a garden to a fight. You brought a leash to a daughter, I said. Tool, she corrected automatically. Not anymore, I said, and the shift came. Gates don't always thunder. Sometimes they click. Weight settled through my spine. The air sharpened. The blue roses closest to me deepened a shade and stayed open without my attention. Circles of magic ran smoother, louder, with more teeth. The field bent toward my gift the way a table dips toward a bowl when you set it down too hard. Mid-radiant. It wasn't a light show. It was a sentence finishing itself. Evelyn felt it. She hid the fear perfectly, which is how I know it was real. You should have remained small, she said, and drove Ericle's brand at my throat. I conceded nothing. Sever now, I told the blue line in my hand, and it cut. This time it bit. The strand from crown to brand snapped like old thread. The black crown flickered. Ericle's voice snarled over my skin and vanished. The chains lost the demon's backing and dropped a foot. Evelyn didn't flinch. She tried to swap the wound. Exchange, she said, her favorite cheat. Trade injuries. Make my cut hers, her brand mine. I'd waited for it. Not with me, I said quietly, and wrote the smallest line of all. My life is not hers. Blue ink. No flourish. The swap skidded across it and failed. We were close now. Black petals trying to eat blue. Blue petals refusing to be a meal. 9-circle math stacked until the circles blurred into habit. She threw Oblivion Sheaf 9, a fan of erasing cuts. I split it with blue split and let half die in harmless air. She whipped a chain for my ankle. I stepped inside it and let it fall around my calf without closing, because I wrote you miss on the inside of the loop. She aimed for my eye with a thorn. I blinked and wrote, after on the thorn's edge. It arrived late. Stop it, she said through her teeth. Stop writing over me, I said. She drew her last card. Not a spell. A line. Arthur will die, she said flatly, and sent the words toward my focus like a dart driven by hate. The line hit. It always does if you love anyone. It didn't divert my hands. It hardened them. Then I build something he can stand on, I said, and finally took her guard apart. The finishing move wasn't pretty. It wasn't meant to be. I put one blue rose against her sternum, the kind that grows only when you tell the truth and mean it. Then I pushed. The rose didn't explode. It bloomed inward. Blue light filled the space between bone and brand, between borrowed power and old pride. It wrote one thing and only one. No more. The brand cracked down the center. Ericle's shadow let go. Every black rose in the glasshouse browned at the edges and turned brittle. Evelyn staggered. She reached for her last trick, control by name. Daughter, she said. Not yours, I said and closed. The blue bloom finished. Her knees hit the broken tiles. Her eyes stayed level with mine until the end, still calculating, still trying to find a way to turn this into a lesson I would be forced to remember. No more, I repeated softer, and her head bowed. Silence took the glasshouse in a single breath. I stood still. Then I walked the room, snipping dead black vines with quiet blades of blue sever and letting the garden clear itself. The steel ribs showed again. Wind moved. For the first time in years, the glasshouse felt like a place instead of a test. Mid-radiant settled. My circles hummed like a machine that had finally found the right gear. The blue roses around my boots stayed open without me thinking about it. I didn't cry, not because I'm strong, because I had work to do with my hands. Closing arcs, canceling residues, burning the last of Ericle's taste from the corners. The cleanup took 10 minutes. Felt like 10 years. When I was done, I left the glasshouse and took the path I always take when I need to breathe. I walked to the terrace above the river where the first blue rose I ever grew still lives in a cracked pot. Night was honest there. The city hummed like a living thing. My garden knew my weight and let me in. I sat on the stone bench. My hands shook once and then stopped. Footsteps. A presence at my back that the world always leans toward. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. Arthur's arms slid around my ribs from behind, strong and careful. He set his cheek against my shoulder and said nothing. I let my head tip back until it touched his. The blue roses opened wider and turned the night a shade kinder. That was enough. I found her in the blue garden she keeps for herself. Petals still, air clean. A place where bad days soften at the edges. Rose stood among the roses with her back to me, shoulders straight like she was holding up the sky by force of will. You did it, I said. She didn't turn. I did. I slid my arms around her waist from behind and felt the tension leave an inch at a time. Up close, I could taste new power. Her mana had stepped up, cleaner, heavier. Mid-radiant now. Earned, not gifted. She called you a tool, I said. She always did, Rose answered, voice even. Now she can't. We stayed there until her breathing matched mine. Then the work pulled at both of us again. Evelyn's last spell left a thread, I said. Your paradox bloom and my gray both felt it. It isn't pointing at Avalon. Rose lifted her hand and a single blue petal hovered above her palm, quivering. It's pointing between. Someone anchored a fissure and hid the city on the other side. The Order's nest, I said. Not a room. A city. She nodded once. Let's cut it out. I pinged a courtesy loop to all 5 powers south, north, west, east, central. 1 line each, following a spatial fissure linked to the Order of the Fallen Flame. Possible strike. Please hold corridors clear. The replies came quick. South's copy. North's sky lanes open. West's send coordinates. East's observers on standby. Central's authority granted. Avoid magistrate paths. Good. No politics in my way for once. I pulled Gray up just enough to read the world seams. Rose fed the blue petal into the air. It spun and tugged. The line it drew wasn't straight. It slipped under rivers, around wards, skated along old ley lines like a thief that knows every alley. The petal stopped over a dead canyon 2 countries west. Ashbluff territory. Long strip of broken stone and bad wind. Nothing lived there by choice. The cliff face at the end of the gorge looked ordinary until Gray told the truth. Pressure bending where it shouldn't. Echoes landing where there was no room for echoes. A seam. Here, Rose said. I sent one more ping. VYR for perimeter. Redeemers for cleanse. Erebus for anything we shouldn't touch. 2 minutes, VYR answered. 2 is enough, I said. The fissure wasn't a door. It was a crack glued open with sloth sigil staples. Iron hooks sunk into reality, each stamped with Ericle's sleepy crown. The order had turned the cliff into a hinge and taught it to forget the word close. Loosened harmony, I said, laying calm over the rock. The sloth push eased just enough to think straight. Rose's blue roses climbed the staples and wrote release across each one in a clean hand. Hooks that had sat for years remembered they were metal and not law. They loosened. Gray, I told the seam. Open. It opened like a book that didn't want to, and then did. We stepped through into a city. Not huge, no sky towers, but real. Streets, forges, shrines, barracks, markets. Ward lines stitched like spiderwebs. Sloth hung over everything like humidity, smoothing edges, slowing thought. And people. Hundreds. A lot of them trained. This wasn't a hiding hole. It was a capital. The order never left, Rose said quietly. They just moved sideways. VYR came in behind us with a tight outer ring, helmets down, visors black. Perimeter on the crack, she said. No leaks. Erebus? I asked. His voice arrived from a shade that didn't exist. Here, he said. Redeemers? I asked. 2 cadres, VYR answered. 1 to follow your heels. 1 to hold the hinge. Good, I said. Core targets. We cut the spine. Rose pointed, already reading the weave. For anchors, Money Hall, Forge Grid, Chapel Square, Command Vault. Break those and the rest falls loud. We moved. The Money Hall looked like a bank anywhere. Counters, ledgers, polite murder behind glass. The difference lived below. A sloth engine chugged under the floor, ritual plates, blood drains, a contraption that turned debt into leverage into power. I didn't give them speeches. Valeria drew clean circles and laws I trust lived in my hands. First bite. Shortest line. Carry through. The front-line guards came fast and fell faster. 9 circle spells sang under my skin. Kinetic lash 9 to pluck knives from hands. Gravity shear 9 to tilt the floor against a charge. Windlock 9 to make running forward feel like trudging through syrup. Rose starved their engine in one pass. Blue roses wrote Profit 0 across their scheme. The ritual plates stopped adding. The room remembered it was a room. VYR's people swept, tied, tagged. Redeemers slid lantern light under every desk and through every book. Sloth stains hissed and let go. Next, I said. The forge grid ran hot and wrong. Sloth seep had soaked the steel, telling metal to stay lazy. Workers wore rings with the crown of Ericle. A radiant foreman stepped into our path with a smile that didn't reach his eyes and lifted both hands to dump a heat-blind fog over the lane. Loosened harmony, I said, and the fog refused to be stupid. 9-circle heat sink, I added, and the floor drank the rest. He tried a sloth bind, thick, soft, convincing. Rose wrote one task over it. The bind shrank to a strap. I cut it. Then I cut the ring off his finger. He stopped smiling. We kept it clean. I carried steel and simple spells. Rose killed contracts on sight. In 15 minutes, the forge grid ran on gears and fuel instead of oaths. Redeemers combed the dorms. VYR's people found the side doors and closed them forever. Chapel Square was worse. Not a church. A courtyard with 7 pits and a black stone table worn smooth by sacrifice. Sloth priests chanted. A demon lord icon hung in the air. The lazy crown, eyes hooded, watching. Leave the icon alone, I told everyone. It's bait. We hit the priests like a hammer that had learned manners. I used space and force, space stitch 9 to keep their jumps honest, force ladder 9 to step through a wall of bodies without making a human mess. Rose put later on any spell that needed now. Their chanting drifted a beat behind their intent, then 2 beats, then useless. The icon flickered. A single blue rose kissed its crown. It went out. Redeemers flooded the pits with pure light. You don't burn sloth. You unstick it. They unstuck it, inch by inch until the stone stopped sighing. VYR's people took the square and put up barriers with plain labels. No entry. Cleaning. 2 cores left. The command vault sat under a plain hall. The door was a contract written on steel. Rose looked once and wrote a blunter sentence over it. Open. The door forgot whose side it was on. Inside, 20 radiant mages, 3 bishops, 1 general, hard eyes, bad hands. In the center, a black stand held a square box with a lock that wasn't a lock. Containment, Erebus said. He didn't move closer. He never rushes the worst thing in the room. They hit us as a unit. Full 9-circle salvos. Overlapping. Chain lightning nets. Sandglass binds. Heat snaps. Sloth rains. The kind of coordinated fire you only see from people who train together longer than they think about dinner. I answered with my own. Lightning 9 for muscle. Gravity 9 under heel. Wind 9 for feet. Stonework 9 to ask the floor to behave like a partner. Deep dark 9 to cut their sight lines. Pure light 9, not a blast, a comb, to stop residue clinging to my team. All while my sword wrote small truths. Bite, line, carry, exit. Rose stripped their clever bare. Blue roses climbed their circles and wrote mean little rules. No mirror. No swap. No echo. Their strongest tricks hit their own gloves and blew out numb fingers. The general tried to open a gate under me. Valeria's flat told that spot of space no. The gate tried somewhere else and forgot where that was. On beat 5, the front line folded. On beat 7, the bishops were on the floor with VYR's knee on one throat and her hand on another wrist. On beat 9, the general tried to grab the box. I was already there. I eased the lid. Gray made a small room around my hands and the container so the rest of the world didn't have to breathe this with me. Inside, a glass vial with dark liquid. Not much. Enough to end cities. It wasn't heat. It was weight. Miasma so dense the air bent. My soul resonance, my second gift. Reached for it on reflex, greedy for understanding. I cut the reflex like it was a hand that wasn't mine. Valeria's voice slid into my head. Steady. Don't copy this. I won't, I said out loud. Rose cupped her palms around the vial without touching it. Blue roses wrote 3 rules on the air. Stay in glass. Don't multiply. Be quiet. The pressure eased a notch. Erebus opened a reliquary grown from pale bone. Give it, he said. No drama. He never does when it matters. I set the vial. The reliquary closed. The room stopped trying to crawl out of its own skin. It's as heavy as the infernal Armis, I said. Maybe worse. Worse, Erebus said. The Armis is a blade. This is a knuckle. The general laughed once. You carry death now, he said. It will call to its owner. Let it try, Erebus answered, and tucked the reliquary into a page that didn't exist. It can be lonely a long time. VYR reported from the door. Outer cordon holds. Runners tagged. No civilian spill. Your crack is quiet, but not for long. Then we end it, I said. We didn't erase the whole pocket city. That takes weeks and courts and ledger work. But we broke the spine. Money dead. Forges honest. Square clean. Vault emptied. The rest would wither. I sent the tally to the 5 powers. Fissure breach confirmed. Order core city hit. For anchors down. Heavy artifact contained. Survivors fleeing into outer branches. Central's reply came fastest. Bring me the ledgers. North, sky clear. West, send your list. We'll hunt the runners. East, scholars ready to help seal. South, we'll pay for Redeemer overtime. Keep going. We're not done, Rose said quietly. No, I agreed. But Avalon sleeps safer tonight. We walked back to the seam. Redeemers sealed the last sloth marks with careful light. VYR's people started cataloging without complaint. Erebus stood at the hinge and wrote sigils that mean forget in the old dead languages. I turned to the city one last time. It looked smaller already. Close it, I told Gray. The crack folded. The canyon wind hit us like a real thing again. Rose leaned against me. Thank you, she said. Always, I said. We didn't cheer. We didn't give speeches. We started sending names to people who move budgets and guards. That's how you kill a cult that can rival an empire. You break its power and then you stop it from regrowing. When we finally got back to Avalon, the Blue Garden was waiting. Rose stepped into it like home. I followed, tired in the right way. We'd cut the root. The branches would take time. Time we finally had. The Blue Garden held for one more breath. Then my slate buzzed once against my hip. North, anomaly on your ring. I didn't let go of Rose. It's fine, I said, and made it true. I pulled Lucent Harmony up around my hand and the ring, cool, steady, calm, and let a thumb of Gray touch the pocket where the vial sat. The pressure spike flattened. The call lost teeth. Rose's fingers tightened over mine. It tried to ring home? We stepped out of the greenhouse and straight into Ouroboros ops. No cameras. Steel table, paper maps, people who fix things. Cecilia had already stacked folders into lanes. We cut the spine, she said without preamble. Now we break the legs. Operation Emberfall, I said. For days. Hit branches on all continents. No speeches, no leaks. We don't let them reorganize. Elias tapped a clean map. Targets grouped by function: money, rights, transit, knives. West and Central have the densest clusters. East has the deepest sanctums. Assignments, I said. Cecilia, run the board from the palace. You have authority on my stamp. Serafina, take Mount Hua to East Sanctums and ice any ritual rooms. Reka, you and Jean crack West ports and river caches. Rachel, Redeemers lead every entry. Cleanse before anyone takes a breath. VYR, hold corridors and bring runners down. Rose and I will peel the archive sites and command cells. North, Elias asked. Lucifer's sky controllers keep our lanes clear, I said. He already opened the corridor. Erebus set a slender bone box on the table. This sits here and listens, he said. If anything speaks your name from the vial, I will hear the echo. His eyes flicked to my ring. He didn't argue about where the glass lived. Good. We moved on a bell. First cut. A textile mill 2 districts off the river. Third basement bricked at the back. Ward paint looked like mildew. The seam behind it was clean as a lie. Redeemers first, Rachel said. 2 lanterns opened a hand width. The air lost its stick. VYR's squad took the corners. I drew a circle and cut a door without flash. Inside, shelves, ledgers, and a chalkboard that had told 1,000 people how to move money without the magistrates noticing. 2 radiant clerks and 1 mage in a plain robe with wicked fingers. He hissed and snapped a ring. Sloth bind rolled toward us like heavy cloth. Lucent Harmony, I said, and the bind forgot how to be convincing. Windlock 9 pinned his stance. Kinetic Lash 9 plucked his ring from his hand and sent it skittering to Rachel, who caught it with a cloth and dropped it into a copper jar. Reka wrote 2 small curves in the air. Any hidden doors in that room stopped pretending. Rose heeled the chalkboard the other way. She grew 3 blue roses and wrote audit across the math. Columns became confession. Elias's people would love that. 2 minutes, VYR said in my ear. First Street is quiet. West reports contact. On to the next, I said. We hit 7 more rooms before noon. A bathhouse cell where the steam itself was a ward. A river barge office that ran donations to their forges. A shrine painted over as a tea hall, an old armory with fresh oil, a school for handlers, a backroom sanctuary with a glass-topped pit, a clean office in a clean tower with very dirty books. The rhythm held. Redeemers combed, simple nine-circle work cut noise out of the fight. Rose snapped contracts. Valeria's small truths drew lines and ended them. By midday, West chimed. Jean had 3 port caches down. No civilian bleed. Serafina sent a single line. 2 sanctums, iced. Which meant she'd done it perfectly. Rachel logged 17 sloth rings bagged and 3 pits unstuck. Cecilia's messages kept coming in tight. Court warrants where we needed them. Lane holds where we didn't. Budget lines opening like obedient doors. The ring warmed again. Not heat. Pressure like someone thumbing a bruise. The bone box on the table in ops clicked. Erebus looked up from a shadow that was not a shadow. They are testing the tether on the blood, he said across the link. Not with power. With math. Cut it, I said. Already writing, he answered. But it is yours to refuse, not mine. I stepped aside into a quiet stairwell and did it the plain way. Gray around the pocket, 2 pages touching. Harmony over gray so the pocket stayed calm. Then soul resonance, soft, careful. Brushing only the tether pattern, not the blood. Gifts let me hear other people's tricks. I listened to the knot the order had put on the vial, an address and a signature and a way to count answers, and wrote a new name on top of their name. Mine. Then I threw a decoy, a gray echo in empty space. If the tether called again, it would be calling a wall. The pressure eased. The bone box clicked once, then went still. Done, Erebus said. Your refusal was polite. They will get angry. They can mail it to complaints, I said, and cut the link. Afternoon took us to a branch that tried to bite back. A low radiant cell with a brick floor painted to look like nothing. 6 mages, 1 binder, ugly coordination. They threw full 9-circle volleys the second we stepped through. Chain lightning and heat snaps wrapped in sloth reins. I led with stonework 9 and the floor answered. I gave VYR a clean lane down the middle. She took it like war was her day job, which it is. Rose wrote no echo across their clever timing, and their second volley tripped on their first. Reka slid 3 characters on her own skin and hit like a hammer. Rachel's lantern combed the stain out of the air and made the room honest again. One of them, the binder, reached for a stopgap oath with both hands. His ring flared black. I stole the shape of the oath with soul resonance before it finished, put it on a shelf inside my head where I put bad ideas, and cut the ring off his finger. It's done, I said. Hands behind. We took the ledgers and the box they didn't want us to touch. VYR cuffed everyone who could still walk. A redeemer tagged the room. Clean 48H. People obey boring signs. The day rolled. Branches went dark. Calls came in. South paid for redeemer overtime. Central opened the archive vaults to our auditors without haggling. East sent 2 array scholars to help seal the fissure. West sent names of runners they were hunting out in the marsh towns. North kept the sky lanes boring. At sundown, Cecilia's face appeared on the table screen. No makeup, hair up, eyes hard. Varus has warrants on 3 nobles. He wants you present. Tomorrow, I said. Tonight we finish the list. 2 more, Elias said, tapping paper. 1 is nothing. 1 is either nothing or a problem. Start with the problem, I said. A dry goods warehouse. Clean. Great placement near a magistrate route. Nothing suspicious on paper. That's what made it suspicious. We came in on the roof, Reka's favorite. Ladder hatch, quiet drop. The smell hit first. Not rot. Like an old church and a bad secret. Redeemers opened both lanterns. The smell peeled away. A hidden trapdoor in a spotless floor opened 3 inches on its own and thought about playing innocent until VYR sat on it. On me, I said. Below. A vault with a table, 5 stools, and a brand new shrine to Erical painted in paint that never dries. A woman in gray robes bent over the table, hands moving fast. Not a priest. A bookkeeper. Don't move, VYR said. She kept moving. Her wrist turned. A sloth seal slid toward her palm. Last-ditch oath rune, ugly and effective. I didn't give her time to put it on. Valeria drew a short, straight line and took the seal and the top of the table with it. The rune cracked in midair and fell in 2 pieces into Rachel's jar. The woman sagged. "You can't kill us all," she said. "No," I said, "but we can kill your budget." We took her, the books, the private stamps, the pretty seal set meant for magistrate documents. Central would hate that part most. Back at Ouroboros, the map finally looked the way I wanted. Red pins gone. Black pins bagged. Blue pins posted for court. I took a breath and felt the ring go tight against my skin again. This time it wasn't a test. It was attention. Not the demon lords. Too clean for that. Not a sloth push. Too bright. Lysandra's tone had the taste of silk and knives. This was different. Sharper. Familiar. A feminine voice spoke in the room without using the room. "You took something heavy," Alisara said, calm, amused. Cecilia's jaw tightened. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Rose stood a little straighter and didn't let go of my sleeve. "I did," I said. "You should stay away from it." "I won't." A beat. Then, plain truth I did not like. "I found a way to kill lust. You'll hate it." The line cut. No echo. No trace. Alisara had always been good at hanging up first. "Later," I said. "We finished tonight." We ran the last branch without drama. VYR set hard posts on the Fisher Canyon. Redeemers chalked the last stain shut with tired hands and no complaints. Serafina came back with frost on her sleeves and no blood on her boots. Ops thinned. People ate. Paper moved. I stood looking at the map until the red pins were gone and the room smelled like ink, tea, and tired humans doing their jobs. "Go see her," Cecilia said, not looking up from her stack. "She'll say she's fine." "She's not." "She's more than fine," I said. "But I will." I stepped out and took the quiet hall to the greenhouse that never makes the tour. The door opened on first touch. Blue roses. Night air. Rose standing with her back to me, shoulders down for the first time all day. I didn't say anything. I walked up and wrapped my arms around her waist from behind, and she leaned into me like she'd been waiting for that exact angle. Her manna was heavier now, cleaner, mid-radiant, steady as a pulse. "You smell like ink," she said. "You smell like home," I said. We stood like that until the palace clocks ticked through a minute we could keep. My ring warmed once against her wrist. Not a call. A reminder that we were holding something even a demon lord would notice. Tomorrow had its own problems: Varus warrants, West's runners, East seals, Alisara's bad idea. Tonight, I held the woman who had broken her mother's chain and our city's worst habit on the same day. In the garden she had made for days like this. The blue roses didn't move. The air stayed clean. We let it. The blue garden held its breath for us. Moonlight stitched through the glass. The roses stood very still. And the palace clocks 2 courtyards over remembered how to be quiet. Arthur's arms circled my waist from behind, warm, steady. And the whole terrible, busy day finally stepped back far enough that I could hear myself think. Still hurt. Not the clean pain of a blade or the bright sting of a spell. A bruise with memory in it. Evelyn was never my mother. She wore my mother's place. Before I turned 5, she acted as Count Springshaper's wife. My father's wife in the eyes of the house and the empire's polite ledgers. She braided my hair. She taught me the elegant names for colors. She whispered goodnights in a voice I trusted because I was 3 and that's what 3-year-olds do. Years later, after my gift woke early and wild, she changed to steal me. Not to hold me, to take me. Charlotte stopped her in the courtyard with chalk still wet on the stones. Charlotte Archmage Tower Master, my aunt, Evelyn's sister. The air smelled of iron and rain. Charlotte sealed my gift with hands that shook after and told me it was only sleeping. Evelyn left because she could not prize me out of Charlotte's circle. The seal held. The world went on insisting Evelyn was gone. We both learned what a lie can do if you give it a decade. Today ended her for real. "I did well, right?" I asked. The words were small, a little younger than 24. "Perfectly," Arthur murmured. chin on my shoulder. Maybe more than perfectly. I laughed once, thin but honest, and leaned into him. His work ring had warmed earlier when that vial tried to remember its address. He'd smothered the call with Lucent Harmony and a thumb of gray. Erebus left a bone box humming on a steel table to listen for anything that dared say Arthur's name the wrong way. We cut the spine. We broke the legs. Operation Emberfall turned red pins to black bags and blue court posts. Somewhere out there, Cecilia was still making courts move like she pressed the right gears. Rachel was cataloging sloth rings in copper jars. Redeemers were writing clean in chalk the air believed. Serafina would be folding frost off her cuffs. Alisara had hung up with a sentence that tasted like knives. I found a way to kill lust. You'll hate it. Stop thinking, Arthur asked softly. I'm trying, I said, but my head is loud. Then we'll give it something gentler to play. His hands didn't hurry me, he never does. He just reminded me where my body ended and this night began. I turned to face him. Even in the greenhouse's blue light, his eyes were the same clear azure I'd noticed at 15 in Mythos Academy's atrium, when banners snapped with first-day wind and the placement screen threw everyone's future 3 stories high. He was rank 8 in Class 1 then, quiet and too observant for his own safety. A commoner walking like he'd taught himself how to take up exactly as much space as he could defend. I was Class 1B, Count Springshaper's daughter with my crest pinned to code. Posture measured in angles old houses approve of. Our empire runs on maglevs and hollow feeds and guild payrolls that ping your slate by the minute, and also on hereditary ledgers, wax seals, and arranged dinners where supply chains look like seating charts. No one trains you for meeting the person who makes both calendars feel like suggestions. I sat next to you at lunch on purpose, I said, because remembering us was kinder than remembering her. I liked how you broke those constructs in the practical. You did it like you'd practiced under a kitchen lamp for years. He smiled, a small, unruly thing. You talked to me when everyone else practiced not seeing me. I never liked that game. I nudged him with my brow. By the end of the year, we were already impossible. Midwinter dueling exam, he corrected, amused. You put me on my back in the ranker's circle and offered me your hand in front of everyone. They told me a lady shouldn't, I said, that you might pull me down. You did anyway, he said, and I did not pull you down. You've been ruining bad advice for me ever since. We stood with that until the ache shifted, less a blade, more a map. He brushed a curl behind my ear. Tell me what part hurts. That I wanted something from her at the end, I said, knowing what she did, what she tried to do. The courtyard was still in me. Charlotte's chalk, Evelyn's hand reaching, my father's voice breaking. You were a child when she taught you to expect gentleness, Arthur said. Wanting it again doesn't make you foolish. It makes you honest. A tear slid. I let it. I could have pulled a trick. Paradox Bloom will happily turn pain into puzzle if I let it. But tonight the garden asked for quiet and Arthur asked for truth, and I am trying to be a person who gives both. I wanted her to say my name and mean me, I said. Not the gift. Not a plan. She never will, he said without cruelty. But she also doesn't get to decide what that name means now. I rested my forehead to his. My engagement ring, steel with a seam of blue, clicked soft against his cheekbone. We said yes on the academy roof because he likes symmetry and I like that about him. I'm 24. So is he. The house stewards keep sending fabrics and guest lists. The imperial calendar keeps asking for a date. I keep ignoring both because today needed warrants, not cake. Tomorrow needs them again. Do you remember the spring festival? I asked. When I took your hand in public? His mouth crooked. Your father stopped breathing for a full second. He loves me, I said. Saying it steadied me. He didn't know how to love you yet. He learned. Arthur's voice warmed. He calls me son now and forgets to sound surprised. We let that sit. My father had messaged before midnight. A blurry photo of his tea beside one of my greenhouse roses, and proud of you, little star. He is a brave man in an empire that teaches men like him to be strategic instead. I should say the hard part, I said. Because he knows I keep it in a separate box. He waited. He never forces latches. You're dating others, I said. I'm not. Most days that sits clean in me. Some days jealousy hisses in my ribs and gnaws wires for fun. He didn't flinch. I told you before I asked you to marry me. I'd be exact and honest with everyone. I wouldn't ask you to be less to make space for what I want. I meant it. You're my constant, Rose. The point the needle returns to. It helps when you say it, I admitted. I chose this.
He chose you.
I don't share well, but I trust you. And I trust the woman I am with you more than I trust that hiss. We'll tend it like anything alive, he said. When it hisses, we feed it truth and time. I barked a laugh. Responsible adult, says the boy who jumped the east wall to get me street noodles after curfew. Rank 8 in 1A, he said primly. Walls were suggestions. And I was the Count's daughter in 1B, and I still ate those noodles on the wall because they were hot and perfect, and you looked at me like I was allowed to enjoy them. I still look at you like that, he said simply. The ache folded another inch. I lifted a petal from the nearest rose. Blue light threaded it. Paradox Bloom likes making loud things legible. I wrote a small word in the air with it, enough, and let the petal settle on his sleeve. He watched it fall like it mattered. That's the kind of man he is. Tomorrow, he said, meaning warrants on noble doors with Varus seal, marsh runners, East's fishers, North sky lanes, and Alisara's knife-bright idea. Tomorrow, I agreed, we'll argue with a demon lord's title until it learns to listen. And tonight, he said, we remember why we pick the hard work. Because we met at 15 and you made me sit with a boy the ledger didn't think I should see, I said. Because you let me be strong without making me a trophy. Because when the world said Evelyn was dead, and then said she was a ghost, and then finally said her name with fear, you looked at me and said Rose, and meant me. He glanced past me at the roses. You built this place, he said. I just learned the door. I looked over his shoulder at the city. Maglev's drew soft comets. The crown tower projected its old crest on new steel. Our empire breathed. Modern in its lights, medieval in its knives. Our work mattered in it. So did this. Take me to the roof tomorrow, I said. I'll smuggle indecent hot chocolate, he said. With marshmallows your etiquette tutors hated. I'll bring a blanket and 3 stories I am absolutely not supposed to tell about court people with terrible shoes. No maps for an hour, he bargained. No maps, I promised. We let the promise sit between us until the garden felt it too. Somewhere in Ouroboros, a door closed carefully. The bone box by the steel table kept listening like a good dog. Arthur's ring stayed quiet. The vial kept calling the wall he'd written for it instead of us. I loved you when you were a boy eating noodles on a wall and pretending not to blush, I said into his shoulder. I love you now when you smell like ink and tired redeemers and a map without red pins. I'll love you tomorrow when we pick the boring, honest way to win. He exhaled like I'd handed him a password he already knew. I love you, he said, in all the ways we made room for. The blue roses didn't move. The air stayed clean. The ache didn't vanish. It folded into something I could carry without cutting my hands. Evelyn was never my mother, but she wore that place long enough to lace my memories with her voice. Charlotte's chalk held. My father's steadiness held. Arthur held me like I was a person and not a plan. We left the lights low. We carried the quiet out like a seal on a letter. Tomorrow could find us. Tonight, the garden kept our minute and we kept it. Night at the penthouse, Arthur's POV. Gray folded and the world let us through. One step we were in Ouroboros, steel corridors, low lights, the hum of night crews still at their posts. And the next we were in my penthouse in Avalon City. The ward recognized me and set the rooms to night mode. Soft gold along the baseboards, blinds lowered, temperature nudged warmer. The quiet here is different from headquarters. No runners, no paging tones. Just the city far below like a calm sea. Rose's hand was still in mine from the jump. I felt the last of the mission wire leave my shoulders as we crossed the entry hall. It smelled like fresh sheets and cedar. I had keyed the security to expect us. No chime, no handshake prompts. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Arrive, wash, sleep. Stella's already down, I said, voice low without meaning to be. Reka tucked her in after dinner. I told them we'd be late. Rose nodded. Her hair was loose, auburn falling past her shoulders. No badge, no house pin. Just her. Good, she said. You look like you need 3 hours with your brain turned off. Ambitious, I said, and meant to make a joke of it, but the truth was close. We didn't tour anything. The living room's glass wall held the city lights like a promise. We walked straight to the bedroom. I set my slate on the dresser, thumbed it to emergencies only, and slid it into the drawer so I wouldn't keep looking. The ward read the gesture and dimmed another notch. Rose disappeared into the bathroom. Water ran, then cut. I took my turn after, the fastest shower of the month, and came out in a cotton shirt and sleep pants with skin that finally felt like it belonged to me. She was already in bed, propped on one elbow, watching me the way she does when she's making sure I'm not still carrying something I could have set down. I slid under the covers and the mattress remembered us. It's a big bed by design. My life is not simple and neither is my family, but right now it was just the two of us and the quiet. Slate's off, she asked. In a drawer, I said. Very brave. She smiled and tugged me closer by my sleeve. Then we can turn everything else off, too. I let Lucent Harmony drop. Not the shield itself, just the habit of keeping it quietly poised in the background even while I'm safe. It's almost as loud as a thought when you stop it. The air got softer. Rose leaned in and kissed me once, slow and certain, and then again with the kind of patience you only give someone when you know the rest of the world can wait. It's a strange skill, learning how to relax on purpose. You have to notice you're armoring up and then convince muscle and mana they can stand down. I felt the click of it, the small inner sound of doors unlocked, just as the bedroom door opened. We didn't hear a chime. There wasn't one to hear. She's whitelist in the penthouse wards the way breath is whitelist in lungs. Daddy! Stella stood in the doorway with a blanket pushed up under her chin and her stuffed fox dangling from one hand. Black hair half out of a braid, black eyes too awake for this hour, socks that did not match. She looked like she had run here on important business and then remembered to be polite at the last step. Hey, Star, I said, sitting up. You couldn't sleep? She shook her head, took 3 fast steps in, paused on the edge of the rug like it was a border that needed a stamp, and then, when Rose flipped back the corner of the duvet without a word, came the rest of the way and climbed up. I wanted to be with you, she said, like she had done the math and this was the answer. She glanced at Rose. With both of you, if that's okay. It's more than okay, Rose said. She patted the mattress between us. Come here, Comet. Stella scrambled in with the controlled chaos of a 12-year-old who has made a plan and is executing it now. The fox landed on the pillow like a diplomat sent ahead to announce terms. Stella wedged herself diagonally the way she always does, head toward Rose's shoulder, feet pointed at my shin. She smelled like laundry soap and a hint of workshop. One of her projects had clearly refused to go to bed on time. I adjusted the blanket over her legs. Long day? I asked. My brain was loud, she said. It listed things. I told it the list could wait and it said no. Charlotte says I should tell it to sit. I told it to sit and it stood up on purpose. Coming here was faster. Then you were smart to come, I said. We can outnumber a list. Stella's fingers searched in the dark. I held mine up. She found them and laced them without looking. Rose did the same on Stella's other side. For a while we didn't talk. We counted breaths together in the quiet. The city's light made a barely there band along the blackout shades. The ward's hum traded night blue for something warmer. Can I ask something? Rose said after a minute, voice steady and simple. Stella turned her head. Always. Rose swallowed once. I saw the small movement in the dim. Would you like to call me Mom instead of Aunt Rose? She asked. Only if you want to. Only if it feels right to you. I want to be that for you. Stella went very still. Her eyes widened. For a heartbeat she looked like every age she has been, 3, 6, 9, 12, all layered at once and all of them wanting the same thing. She looked at me. Last check. It would make me very happy, I said. Names are yours. You don't have to choose tonight. You don't have to choose ever. But if you want it, it's yours. She bit her lip. The fox slid off the pillow and did not protest. Then the want one. Okay, she said. Small voice, very clear. Mom. Rose's breath hitched. She didn't cry. Not at first. She smiled like someone promising a good thing and nodded once. Slow. Hi, Stella, she said. I'm your mom. Stella launched herself into Rose's arms with all the speed and totality of a decision that will stick. I put my arm around both of them and closed the circle. The bed felt bigger for it, not smaller. We stayed like that until the emotion in the room settled into something gentle and ordinary. It's a good kind of ordinary. The one that makes a place into a home. Ground rules, Stella said at last, practical even with wet lashes. Mom gets this side. Daddy gets that side. I go in the middle because geometry. If there's a nightmare, we do the hand thing. She lifted our linked hands and wiggled her fingers. 1 squeeze means I'm here. 2 means I love you. 3 means go to sleep. Accepted, I said. Also, she added, tomorrow we make pancakes. The thick ones. With the tiny chocolate chips that somehow jump into the batter even when you say no. We will investigate that jumping, I said gravely. It's physics, Rose said, equally grave. Then it's not our fault, Stella concluded, pleased. She settled back down, head tucked under Rose's chin like it had been designed for that spot. Her breathing slowed by degrees. She made one small, unconscious sound and nudged her cold toes against my leg. I did not protest. This is the tax you pay for being allowed to be a part of something good. Rose looked at me over Stella's hair. Even in the dim, I could see her eyes shine. Thank you, she mouthed. You asked, I mouthed back. I just tried not to ruin it. Her mouth curved. The room was quiet in that full way that makes sleep easy. I reached toward the dresser without getting up and pushed the drawer with my slate in it closed the last inch. It wasn't necessary. Still felt good. Daddy? Came a tiny voice half asleep. Here, I said. Tomorrow can we fix the squeaky wheel on the workshop cart? It makes the ward in the corner sad. Yes, I said. We'll oil it after pancakes. Okay, she murmured. Good night, Mom. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Stella, Rose whispered, and kissed the top of her head. Good night, Star, I said. We didn't make plans after that. The map could find me in the morning. The warrants, the reports, the next set of cleanups. None of that was going anywhere. I let my eyes close with my daughter's hand warm in mine and the woman I love steady on the other side of her. The ward hummed like a house pleased with itself. The city breathed under the glass. Some things are worth guarding because they are powerful or they move empires. Some things are worth guarding because they are small and right and make the rest of it make sense. A child's voice sang Mom for the first time. A bed that holds 3 heartbeats and no alarms. A night when nothing explodes and no one asks for anything except pancakes. I slept. Not like a man who caught a gap between alarms. Like a man who came home and had the sense to stay. Violet at the threshold, Arthur's POV. By late morning, the penthouse sounded like a house instead of a headquarters. We'd fixed the squeaky wheel on Stella's workshop cart, tuned the reading lamp in her nook so it slid kindly from red to sleep, and printed a silly photo of the 3 of us. Stella mid-tongue, me failing to look dignified, Rose caught laughing. Stella put it on the shelf above her bed with both hands like placing a ward stone. The room's hum changed half a note. Small, real things do that. Agenda item 4, Stella said, hopping off the bench. Test balcony wind. Scientific hair assessment. Shoes, Rose said, catching her by the elbow. The tiles get hot. Operational footwear engaged, Stella reported, racing for her sneakers. I stood a second longer than I needed to, watching the way Rose smoothed Stella's braid and the way Stella leaned into the touch without thinking. It landed in my chest the way a door closes right for the first time after you fix the hinge. Quiet satisfaction. Also a clean line of responsibility. I had let the world eat most of my hours for months. Today I was not letting it back in. We were halfway to the balcony when the entry chime answered the elevator. 2 soft notes. Not an alarm. A courtesy. The ward flashed the ID across the living room panel without me asking. Reka, access okay. Saved by the bell, Stella said, pivoting in place. The fox under her arm tilted like a tiny judge. Reka's here. Rose's eyes flicked to mine. Automatic check, old habit, not permission. I nodded, already walking to the door. It slid open before I reached it. Reka stepped in with her usual grace, the kind that makes it look like doors were built to accommodate her and not the other way around. Violet hair braided tight and clean. Jacket off, plain blouse and slacks, a canvas market bag on one shoulder, another looped at her elbow. She had that efficient Saturday look that has saved my life more times than most people know. Welcome home, she said, and the formality thinned when she saw me. The corners of her eyes softened. Master. Reka, I said, and took one of the bags before she could argue. It was heavy and smelled like herbs and garlic. You brought half a garden. Dinner insurance, she said. Contingency plan A through C. Also snacks. Her gaze checked my face like a medic, color, focus, posture. Satisfied, she moved on. Stella hit her at speed. Reka! Reka set the second bag down and opened her arms without breaking stride. Stella fit under her chin like she'd been designed to live there. Reka kissed the top of her head, then leaned back far enough to inspect her like a project. You have been up to crimes, she said, mock stern. Chocolate. Physics, Stella said at once. And we fixed the wheel, and calibrated the lamp. And her mouth ran ahead of the room. Her eyes went to Rose, bright the way they get when she wants to show someone a good thing. And Mom did my braid. The word hung a breath too long before the room remembered how to move. Reka didn't drop her smile. She didn't gasp. She didn't do anything that would have been rude in front of a child. The shift was smaller than that. A half-breath caught. A blink that took one heartbeat more than usual. The tiniest tightening where collarbone meets shoulder, as if an invisible strap had been pulled one notch too tight. I felt Rose go very still beside me. Not scared. Careful. Stella barreled on, unarmed and unstoppable in the way truth is at 12. Mom made the light perfect, and she knows the knot that doesn't catch on hinges. Look. She turned, displaying the braid like a patent. Structural integrity. Reka's eyes tracked the line of it. Professional appreciation registered, because she is always honest with the work. Then her gaze lifted to the photo on the shelf, our silly print still drying at the edges. I watched the data settle. The braid, the lamp, the word, the picture that had not been there last time she tucked Stella in. Beautiful, she said. Her tone was correct. Her voice was a fraction lower. You look very happy. I am, Stella said fervently. We're making boring on purpose. That is a high art, Reka replied. She reached and fixed a flyaway hair by Stella's temple, fingers steady. Then she set her hand on Stella's shoulder like she always does when she is about to pivot the room. You promised Charlotte you would finish your reading module today. I did finish, Stella said. Mostly. 85%. 95 is the floor, Reka said, gentle, automatic. Go bring it here. We will check together. Then you can show me the wheel and the lamp. Okay, Stella said, already spinning toward her suite. She stopped, sudden thought rattling out. Mom helped me understand the last problem. She explained it like a person, not a book. She shot off down the hall, socks sliding on polished wood. The apartment exhaled with her. A different air rushed in. Reka watched the empty doorway for a beat longer than she had to. Then she turned back with a smile so perfect it might have been measured with a ruler. Congratulations, she said to Rose. Polite, precise. A tone she uses in courtrooms and budget meetings when no one in the room is as smart as she is and she is choosing not to notice. On your promotion. It was a knife with velvet on it. Rose didn't flinch from it. She stepped forward a half step, hands open at her sides where Reka could see them, voice even. I asked last night, she said. She chose. We were going to tell you. We just kept the morning for ourselves. Reika's eyes came to me at that last word. Ourselves. There are honest words that are worse than lies. I put the market bag on the counter so I wouldn't crush the basil. Very carefully, I didn't move closer to either of them. You were with her for months when I wasn't, I said. Plain, not defensive. You kept her world from tipping. That doesn't change now. A better man might have found a softer sentence. I am still learning how to be the kind of man my family deserves. Reika heard the intent anyway. I saw it in the way her jaw unclenched halfway through the second clause. But intent isn't inoculation. She calls me Reika, she said, and it should have been nothing. It was not nothing. Sometimes Ray when she runs out of breath. That is also a word you choose. Rose nodded. It is. She took another half step. You have been there. You are there. This doesn't take anything from you. Reika held her eyes. That is a claim, she said softly. We will see if it is true. The faucet dripped once. A tiny treacherous sound. Somewhere in the city below. A siren wound up and then away. The fox on Stella's armchair looked pointedly neutral. Stella thundered back in with a stack of light boards and the certainty that she was bringing the most important thing anyone would hold today. She skidded to a stop at the edge of the carpet, saw Reika by the counter, saw Rose by me, read nothing that would trouble a child, and beamed at all of us at once. Okay, she said, planting her module on the island. Mom, you sit here. Reika, you sit here. Daddy, you're not allowed to help unless it's a safety thing. Reika's gaze flicked to the spot Stella patted, right beside Rose. For a heartbeat she did not move. Reika, Stella prompted, oblivious and eager. Please. Reika set down the second canvas bag with care a surgeon would respect. The handles made no sound against the counter. She smoothed a non-existent wrinkle from her blouse. Every motion neat. Everything exactly where it should be. Then she walked to the island and stopped opposite Rose instead of beside her. Of course, she said. The smile she put on was flawless. Her eyes were not. Master, she added without looking at me, the word too crisp by half. After we finish Stella's module. She didn't finish. The ward light over the door pulsed once. Sensing tension it could not categorize. Stella looked up, pencil midair, mouth open to ask a question she would remember. And Reika's hand, the one resting on the countertop, curled very slowly into a fist.